Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to September's full council meeting. And for those of you who have joined us expecting to see our mayor, I'm sorry to disappoint. Our mayor has another engagement, so you're left with me today. But I've no doubt that together we'll get through what is a pretty heavy agenda. So I trust that with all your cooperation, we'll get through the business of today. On that note, I'm going to move to our Chief Executive and ask him to take us through a roll call. John?
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon, members. To all members of Derry City and Strabane District Council, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Council to be held remotely today, Thursday, the 30th of September at 4 o'clock. Alderman Breslin.
Here, John.
Alderman Devaney.
Here, John.
Alderman Guy.
Here, John.
Alderman Hussey.
Here, John.
Alderman Carrigan.
Here, John.
Alderman McClintock.
Here, John.
Alderman McCready.
I'm here.
Alderman Ramsey.
Here, John.
As the Deputy Mayor has said, apologies from the Mayor, Alderman Graham Work. Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, John.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Raymond Barr. Councillor John Boyle.
Here.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr.
John.
Councillor
Here,
Cusick.
John.
Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Donnelly.
Shaw.
Councillor Doyle.
Here, John.
Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Edwards.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Ferguson.
Here, John.
Councillor Fleming.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Gallagher.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Heaney.
Shaw.
Councillor Jackson.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Kelly.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Logue.
Apologies.
Councillor McGinley.
And Shaw.
Councillor McGuire. Councillor McGuire. Councillor McHugh.
Shaw, John.
Councillor McKeever. Councillor McKinney.
John. Here, John.
Councillor Mullen.
Apologies.
Councillor Mooney.
John.
Councillor O'Neill.
Here, John.
Councillor Riley.
Here, John.
Councillor Sinoy Barr. Councillor Sinoy Barr. Councillor Tierney.
Here, John.
Thank you, members. Just checking on some of the names I may have missed. Councillor Dobbins. Councillor McGuire. Councillor Sinoy Barr. Okay, thank you, members. Back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, John. I'm going to move on now to the statement for remote meetings. And I'd like to remind everybody who's in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members are reminded they only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting. To use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak, and by participating in this meeting, you're consenting to be informed and to the use and the storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Members, moving on now to declaration of members' interest. Any declarations of interest? for the business in front of us today? No. Members, if there's any interest arise, can you let us know through the chat box, but also by orally declaring it at the meeting. Moving on now to chairperson's business, and I've had a few requests from members, and I just note in the chat box, the first alderman that contacted myself was Alderman Derek Hussey. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I simply want to take this opportunity to congratulate a young Castlederg man, Mr. Luke Emery. Luke has just been awarded the Apprentice of the Year on behalf of the Federation of Master Builders. It's a United Kingdom award, and Luke is to be congratulated on that, and I would trust that at some stage the Mayor would take the opportunity to recognise this national achievement from a young Castlederg man. Excuse me, from a young Castlederg man. Luke is a tremendous young man, and those of us about the Derg know Luke. I can only quote from what was said by the chair of the Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee, Clive Betts MP, when he was one of the judges. Looking at the commitment that Luke put into gaining the range of qualifications in such a short period of time demonstrates his enthusiasm for the job he's undertaking. And I think that speaks volumes for the young man concerned. And indeed, I suppose we could add congratulations via the fact that Luke works with a local firm, namely Lowry Building and Civil Engineering in Castlederg. So it's a local apprentice working for a local firm, winning a national award, and I trust the council can endorse. Congratulations. Thank you for the opportunity, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor McHugh. Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor McKee.
Thank
Is it
you.
on this item?
Yeah, same item, Chair. Just to also echo Councillor Hussey's comments there in regarding to Luke, and to offer my congratulations to Luke, and offer my best wishes. And as Councillor Hussey has said, or Alderman Hussey has said, hoping that the Mayor could recognise his achievement. So well done to Luke. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Kerrigan.
You, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me. And just to re-echo what has already been said by Alderman Hussey and Councillor McHugh, Luke's is a powerful, good young fella, and as I say, he's done powerful well, and it's fantastic to see someone local getting recognition in a UK-wide event, and credit to him. And as I say, we know the family connections and where they're from, and I expect nothing else of him. He's done powerful well, and just full congratulations to him. And hopefully it can be arranged to have something that the Mayor, that he can be properly recognised by the council for its success story. And it's always nice to have a success story from the Castlederg side, the further away from the at the other end of the council area. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Kerrigan, and I'm sure, speaking on behalf of everybody, that we offer our congratulations as a council to Luke, and I have no doubt that that the Mayor will explore some sort of a recognition event that would be appropriate to Luke. The next councillor that contacted myself is Councillor Martin Riley. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor, for bringing me in. And tomorrow marks the 1st of October, so that's Black History Month. I just want to put on record thanks to the Northwest Migrants Forum for organising events in October, not just in our council area, but in other council areas across Northern Ireland, where people can have a chance to challenge racism, to recognise the importance, and to educate people about Black history. There's an event taking place on the 23rd of October. Which I think would be useful for members to add to their diaries, just to be a part of that event, and to use that opportunity to mark Black History Month in our council area. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I've no doubt that date on the 23rd of October will be circulated to members, and hopefully that as many members as possible can attend to show support and solidarity with particularly the Northwest Migrants Forum, who do great work in terms of supporting all citizens of this city and district. The final councillor that contacted myself was Councillor Rory McHugh. Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Chair. I know this has been raised previously at committees, but I think it's appropriate to raise it at full council. Just obviously, I would like to congratulate the Tyrone Senior Football men's team and management team on winning their fourth All-Ireland title. Many of us in Tyrone, at one stage, we thought we'd never see Sam Maguire in Tyrone, but we're delighted, obviously, to have it now for the fourth time. You know, with all the goodwill and the good feeling and celebration that it's brought to the county, you know, it's just fantastic. And I know that the Mayor has already agreed to host the reception for the Tyrone senior team and management, Chair, so we look forward to that. Just to ask, Chair, is there any indication of maybe of when that will be taking place?
Thank you, Councillor McHugh. I don't have that information to hand. Is there anybody on the call that has any update? I know I've been speaking to the Mayor's office, and I know they are working on a date, but I don't know if there's any specific update on that. Is there anybody on the call?
Chair, Paul Gallagher.
Councillor Gallagher, there's somebody in front of you. So
just for information on this subject.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, and I was talking to the Mayor and again some on the county board, and there was an element around Sam, the cup itself, not getting released out of Dublin, and there's an expectation that by the 22nd of October that will happen. So there's an expectation that, in particular, coming to Strabane will be in around the shortly after that date of 22nd October.
Okay, we'll wait for confirmation closer to the time, but I suppose just on the back of the comments from Councillor McHugh again, I'd like to, on behalf of Council, congratulate the Tyrone senior team, and I suppose we have earlier on in the year recognised the achievements of the Derry Miners, winning in All Ireland, and hopefully that bodes well in terms of us, or the prospects of us seeing Sam Maguire come back to the other end of our council area sometime in the future. So I'm going to move on now, and I suppose it's along the same vein in respect to achievements, because whenever we think back to the last full council meeting at the end of July, it seems a long time ago, and there's been quite a lot that has happened within our council area. There's been quite a number of major achievements, not least the achievements of the Tyrone minor team. But I want to pay particular tribute to two individuals. First, Jason Smith from within our council area in Eglinton, who won his 6th gold medal in the Paralympics in Tokyo. And I just want to, on behalf of council, offer our congratulations to that tremendous achievement. Secondly, I would like to pay tribute to the tremendous achievement and efforts by local man Danny Quigley in his remarkable achievement of completing 10 Ironmans in a row. And I know for a lot of us, an Ironman is a daunting task for any normal man on the street or woman on the street. An Ironman is no mean feat, but to do 10 of them in a row, and it's my understanding that across the world, I believe there's only 88 people that have been able to complete the achievement of what Danny has done. That's sort of speaks to the scale of the task that was set in front of him. But what makes it even more remarkable is the reasons behind it. And I for one, am completely in awe of what Danny had done and how he was able to raise awareness of the issue of suicide and suicide awareness, and been able to raise money for a fantastic charity in terms of Pay the House. So I just want to, and I know the mayor has held a reception on behalf of Danny, but I wanted to just mark that tremendous achievement at this full council meeting today. Councillor Doyle you've indicated in the chat box that you wish to come in under chairperson's business. I haven't had any communication from yourself prior to the meeting, so I am not in a position to bring you in under chairperson's business.
Chair, apologies. I had actually contacted the mayor about 2 weeks ago with the chief executive, and I contacted the chief executive again this morning because I wasn't too sure who was chairing the meeting. If you even want to check with John, I know it's up to yourself, but it's I did have the request in with Graham and John for about 2 weeks ago via email.
Councillor Boyle, the chief executive is unable to give me the information. I confirm that in terms of what the issue is, and I don't want to open it. There's a lot of business that's in front of us today, and there was an opportunity if there was an indication that you wished to do it 2 weeks ago. I suppose the avenue through that was to table a notice of motion, so all members could have sight of it and consider it before coming to the meeting. So I'm going to move on now to the.
Sorry, Mayor. It's the Deputy Mayor. I mean, it seems unfair if he has given notice, if he can show that he has given notice that this is about chairperson's business. Should he not? It's a motion's different. Everybody else was allowed to bring something in. Apologies for interrupting.
Everybody else had contacted me prior to the meeting to tell me what it was. Now I'm conscious that there's a considerable amount of motions in front of us today that members had been able to have sight of and been able to consider. This the chairperson's business is to the discretion of the chairperson, and I haven't been made aware of any issue that was to be raised by this member. So I am moving the meeting on. So
Chair, I had sent the Mayor and John an email. I've just got it in front of me here on the 15th of the 9th. If John wants to double check, but it is a serious issue, and I would appreciate it if John could check. I understand it's up to your discretion, but I did do it in good enough time, and I would have assumed that it would have been passed on to yourself. But if John wants to check, it's the title of it is Full Council Chair Business on the 15th of the 9th.
okay, no, there's no doubt that the email was sent, and the chief executive confirmed the email was sent. I just want to make it clear that I made contact. I was in contact with the mayor this morning, and I was informed that there was no items for chairperson's business. So the email that was sent on to the mayor, the mayor hasn't tabled it as to be part of chairperson's business. And I'm conscious there's a lot of business in front of us today. Again, I would urge Councillor Doyle, if there's a serious issue that he wishes to raise, the mechanism for doing that is through a notice of motion. So I'm going to move on, and I'm going to move on to the confirmation of the open minutes of the meeting, of the full council meeting held on Thursday, the 29th of July, pages 1 to 58.
Point of order, Chair.
Okay, point of order.
Thank you. Chair, I totally understand your position as Deputy Mayor and that wasn't passed on, but in the most respectful way I can tell you, that isn't up to me. If the Chief Executive has an email from me that went to him and the Mayor on the 15th of the 9th to raise chairperson's business, then the business should be heard because it's in order, it's been within the time frame, and if the Mayor hasn't passed it on, I can't do anything about that. I've done what is required of a member. So I would like the Chief Executive to come on and tell me why my chair's business that was in time is not going to be heard.
Chair, I'm happy to come in there on that. It's not a matter for the Chief Executive. The Mayor confirmed yesterday that there were no issues which he had consented to be raised under Chair's business today. I think that's the matter that you're clarifying, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, and again, it is to the chair's discretion, and I haven't had sight of it, and there's been no communication with me. And again, I would like to point out that the mechanism for raising matters of importance to the member, and I've no doubt that it is, was through a notice of motion.
Well, Mayor, all I'll say is when the people of this city and district ask what their council has done to discuss the energy prices they're going to be faced with, I'll be able to tell them that regardless of rules being followed, yourself and the Chief Executive have not allowed me to raise that on their behalf today.
Okay. If Councillor Doyle, again, you've tried to raise a point of order and didn't mention a standing order at all. And again, I'm going to remind that I didn't have any idea what the matter was, but I do believe that a matter of that significance, there's the proper channel is through a notice of motion. I'm going to move to the open minutes of the meeting held on Thursday the 29th.
Chair, apologies. Before you move to that, can I nominate and do a number of changes to committees?
Okay, apologies, Councillor Duffy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in on this. I would just like to take the opportunity to welcome Councillor Emma McGinley onto the council. Emma is a long-term party activist and community activist within the Craigan area. She has a passion about working for young people, and I am sure she will be a great asset to our council team. So on that note, I just want to make a number of changes to our committees. I will send through to the committee section following this meeting the changes to working groups and outside bodies, but just to have it formally acknowledged that I'm going to nominate Councillor Burke onto ENR and Health and Communities, replacing outgoing Councillor Burke. So if I could get those changes noted, and I would just like to make another one change in terms of the planning committee. I would like to replace Councillor Mullen with Councillor Logue. So thank you, Mayor or Deputy Mayor. I elevated you there.
Okay, thank you. And it is remiss of me not to welcome Emma to the first full council meeting. I know I've known Emma for quite some time, and even within council, Emma's been actively involved in the committees of this month, and it was remiss of me not to welcome Emma, who will undoubtedly be a fantastic addition to the entire council team. Councillor Harkin, did you wish to come on?
I do, Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. This is in regard to C387/21. And
Chair, with respect, the minutes has not been proposed and adopted yet before we go on to matters arising.
And I wasn't sure if it was coming on the matters arising. That was is it coming on as accuracy?
matters arising, Chair, so I can
Oh, yeah. No, okay.
I would propose the adoption of the minutes, Deputy Mayor, if that moves it on.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Alderman Devaney, and thanks, Alderman Breslin. Councillor Harkin, matters arising.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and welcome, Emma, and all the best in your new role as a councillor. Yeah, this is in regard to C387/21, and we had an important discussion about commitments that have been agreed to for the Northwest and the new decade, new approach. And I don't see any correspondence from the executive regarding the creation of a Northwest working group to lead and drive forward the delivery of the commitments to the Northwest in that we agreed at the last full council meeting. And I want to ask, given the importance of this, has there been any correspondence? Have we tried to, can council officers tell us if there has been any correspondence with the executive about the creation of this new body? Because if there isn't, this looks to me like another example of the Northwest Dairy, our district area in the Northwest, simply being ignored by the executive, because this is the type of issue I think we can all agree needs to happen immediately, and can't be put on the long finger, because there's too many things that we want developed that for us to allow that to happen. So again, I didn't see anything in the correspondence, and I was surprised, and that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah. Chief Executive, can you confirm?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Confirming, members, that there's a paper has been drafted and will come before the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee next Tuesday night. We've drafted up a terms of reference for the working group and issues associated with the establishment of the working group. That will come before Governance and Strategic Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 4th of October, for members' consideration.
Chair, can I come back in there?
Very briefly, Councillor Harkin.
Yeah, well, look, I appreciate the CEO's response, but the motion, there's two parts to the motion, and I'm concerned if the second part of the motion, which was an amendment that I put forward, hasn't been acted on, because clearly there is action being taken on the first part. The second part of the motion, if people go back and look on it, is that we will write to the Stormont executive to call on them to create a specific Northwest working group to lead on the delivery of the commitments in the new decade, new approach. And I think that that has to be something that we are pressing the executive to do. So can we get clarification if we have acted to contact the executive? Because the two things can be done at once. And I don't understand why we wouldn't have contacted the executive to initiate this proposal.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor, I'm just checking the action list. There is no letter has been sent, probably because the notice of motion is worded that council calls on Stormont executive, not the action is not that a letter is to be sent. That's the normal protocol when it comes to actioning notices of motion. But of course, if members wish for a letter to be sent, that can of course can be done immediately if that's the request of council.
Okay, Councillor Harkin, I'm assuming that you're proposing, suggesting that we go ahead and write that letter.
There, yes, I would be proposing that, and and maybe we need to have some clarification as to how exact calls need to be, because there seems to be sometimes it gets done depending on who's making the proposal. But if we're agreed that that's the thrust of the proposal, so I don't see how the executive would know we were making this call unless we actually phoned them, which would, you could certainly literally read that out of the motion if that is what would be necessary. But a letter would be fine.
Okay. And given that this is the position of council, I'm assuming that members are content that the letter is issued in accordance to the views expressed at last full council meeting. I'm not hearing any difference of opinion, but just for the record, could I have somebody second that proposal?
I'll
second that, Deputy Mayor John Boyle.
Okay. So going to move on now. Councillor O'Neill, your first matter of raising under C390.
Thanks, Chair. It was just around the support of Foyle Pride Festival from that issue, and as well as those other events that have occurred since the last time we met. Foyle Pride Festival also happened, but also Mid-Ulster Pride and Omagh Pride, and I just want to give congratulations to all those prides kind of in and around our council region, and they were all fantastic events. But I want to particularly congratulate Omagh Pride. As it was their very first ever Pride, and the reception in Omagh from the local people and the local community of Omagh was just exceptional, and it was actually a really proud moment for the rural LGBTQ+ community there. And we cannot understate the importance of these rural prides, because if you're an LGBTQ+ person living in a rural area, you face greater social and health inequalities than those living in the cities, and these prides can literally be life-saving for some people. But there was also at both Mid-Ulster and at Omagh Pride some fascist far-right presence at these prides. And I would just want to condemn that presence, because these people, they see this as an opportunity to promote their hateful and divisive politics in an effort to undermine the decades of struggle and progress made by the LGBTQ+ community here in Ireland. And the far right here and across the world base itself on a mix of toxic ideologies, with white nationalism and misogyny and homophobia, transphobia and racism, directing attention to whipping up divisions towards minorities and oppressed groups. And occurrences like these, they are happening. They happen in Mid-Ulster and they happen in Omagh Pride. Remind us we really must stand strong and stand united against all forms of hate, and stand in solidarity with minority and oppressed groups, and be motivated to creating a fair, more equal society, embracing the strength which diversity brings. And and that's why Pride is so important. And that's why those prides in particular were just really, really good to see. So that's all on that point.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Neil. And just on that same point, I know in terms of Foyle Pride, I had the privilege to join yourself and taking part in some of the discussions around Foyle Pride. And one of the things that came out very strongly was that the words within this chamber can cause a lot of hurt. It can cause a lot of the support. The support can be uplifting, and as you've outlined yourself, it can in some instances be life changing and life saving. But and there's some of our comments can cause hurt, and it's something that everybody should be mindful of going forward. But there's been, again, like yourself, I want to echo the comments around the fantastic effort that was put on the Pride throughout the summer and under very difficult circumstances, and particularly welcome the first Pride event in Omagh. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. And again, I'd like to echo your words, Chair, and Councillor O'Neill's. And it was great to see the first Pride event in Omagh, and I was happy to attend with some of my SDLP colleagues. And it was great to see I think in West Tyrone, the first Pride event, I think in West Tyrone. It was great to see, and hopefully it can spread through other towns. I hope that Straban's next year, that there can be a Pride event in Strabane, and I know there's work underway on that. But also, like the echo, it was sad to see the dissenters and the haters in Omagh. Maybe if they focused on child poverty and isolation would suit them better, rather than hating on the LGBTQ plus community. But I just wanted to add my comments to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Donnelly.
I think Alderman Devaney might have wanted in the same issue. I could be wrong, but I just seen a message above me here.
Apologies, you're right. Councillor Devaney, is this on the issue of the Pride events?
Yep, I do surely, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for Councillor Donnelly to be allowing me in there. Probably should have put my name in, but Deputy Mayor, in around the issues about the Pride Awards, and I think many of us seen on social media the abhorrent abuse that our mayor took at a presentation award at one of these events. And I would ask, Deputy Mayor, that we call this out and we condemn that type of activity, whether it's far left or whatever group it's belonged to. I've listened to Councillor O'Neill, and I believe it has to be called out and condemned, because at the end of the day, we are all entitled to our views, and everyone has to respect that view, whether you agree with it or not. But Deputy Mayor, I think it has to be condemned.
Okay, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to concur with the comments made by Councillor O'Neill there. I was in Omagh on Saturday, and I seen the antics and the actions of a far right group who used prayer as a weapon. I've seen their antics of deliberate provocation, where they were carrying a statue. And everybody's entitled to pray, but this was used as a weapon against the Pride, and covered the face of a statue with a veil. So, in their words at the scene, that you wouldn't witness these degenerates. The hatred from these people was palpable, and a cursory glance at some of their websites and the language used is despicable. And and I've seen what the unfortunate thing from this, Chair. I've had some tiffs on social media recently with some of these so-called nationalists locally, and they're using the same language about cultural wars that these far right hate groups are using, and I've seen it and being used in the crossing outside the Guildhall for the argument against that, whilst they're using the pretense of the costly ratepayers, but beneath it there's a palpable sense of homophobia and hate, and some of these people, Chair, are connected to the nationalist party, a particular nationalist party in this council area, and I think this needs to be opposed at every opportunity, and it needs to be called out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. And I was also able to attend Uma's first Pride, which I don't want to take away from such an amazing event where there was so much love from the residents and the people in the town centre. And I also witnessed the protesters, and I must say the Uma residents did create a human barricade so that the parade and the Pride people couldn't see it, and that included some of our councillors here. Now, it's not very often you get to praise our councillors, Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Gallagher, and Councillor Harkin were all amongst those people making sure that the protesters didn't try and push through and disturb the Pride Parade, which was amazing, and it was a fantastic event, and I look forward to many, many more. And I want to just highlight that this was a fantastic thing for the LGBTQ plus community and the rural community, and no matter how many people come out to protest, it showed real love and compassion. So I just wanted to put that out there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and I suppose just on the back of it, I know as part of the Foyle Pride events, there was quite a lot of there was actually a fantastic video that was put together showing the journey of Foyle Pride, and as part of that journey, it demonstrated a lot of the resistance, a lot of the intimidation and the attacks on the LGBTQ community here in the city, and it was fantastic to see how those that were involved in Foyle Pride at that early stage were able to rise above the hate, and were able to create and help grow the event that has become such a feature in the calendar here in our city. And I have no doubt that as events right across this island, for Pride events right across this island, will follow the path that's been set by Foyle Pride and all those that were involved in it. But it is disappointing to hear that there is still some people that wish to promote hate within our council area, and or even neighbouring areas around Foyle Pride and such positive events such as Pride. There is some people that will still have that mindset to oppose them. But as I suppose as a council, we've got a proud record of standing beside and behind our LGBTQ plus community, and I've no doubt that that will continue in the years and months ahead. Councillor Michaela Boyle.
Yes, Chair, not to labour, but I just want to commend everyone who took part in the Pride Parade in Oma. I do know a lot of work went into it from the organisers, and it was very well attended. I want to condemn the antics of those narrow-minded individuals who have no relevance whatsoever, and have no regard for the people obviously taking part in the Pride event. And just to make a comment that in regards to what's been said previously, that we hope next year our Pride parades will be bigger and better, and indeed we look forward to having a Pride parade in Strabane next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Michaela. Councillor O'Neill, I know you've got another matters arising.
It was just Chair, to just come back on one of the points raised.
Very briefly,
Yeah. So,
because there's quite a lot of business to get through.
no, absolutely, I can be brief. It was just around Councillor or Alderman Devaney's remarks around the young black person of the young black trans person who you know, showed their anger and displayed their anger with the DUP during the Foil Pride Awards ceremony. And I have to speak up for that person because, you know, people have the right to criticise political parties who have opposed equality for the LGBTQ plus community, and I stand in solidarity with Ray. You know, people have the right to be angry and to express that hurt and that anger with the people who, you know, have contributed towards it. And I think it's important for the DUP to have heard that as well, because, you know, that is a harm that occurs to, you know, people in the trans community, people in the LGBTQ plus community, you know, whenever homophobic things are said. So I think it's good that they heard it, and hopefully they can move forward with it. That's just what I wanted to say. And also just with regards to the fascist element in Omagh Pride, I just want to also say thanks to Councillor Sean Harkin, Councillor Gareth Donnelly and Councillor Paul Gallagher for you know, helping to, and alongside other anti-fascists, to helping to, you know, manage that fascist element. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Neil, do you want to move on? You had another matters arising?
Yeah.
So
I see 384/21. So no, we're going to be talking about the 20-point cut to universal credit later in the meeting, but I just wanted to connect this with the 200-point or the 100-point high street voucher. And it's just a few points on that. Like, you know, firstly, the most marginalised in our society have the least access to these online resources to access the voucher. Secondly, the voucher, you know, should definitely be extended to 16 and 17-year-olds, many of whom over this pandemic have worked and they've paid taxes and have also made invaluable contributions to our local economy. But thirdly, and the most important point, there's been lots of discussions about where to spend this voucher, you know, what people might treat themselves to. However, for far too many people in our communities, this voucher is going to be spent on heating, it's going to be spent on electricity, it's going to be spent on food, and it's going to be spent on school clothes. It's going to be spent on those essential items that people are really struggling to afford because of the unfair welfare system the Tory government introduced, in which our Stormont executive brought on here as well. And this is going to be a winter of hardship for far too many people. And, you know, I'm sure Councillor Doyle, you know, can come on here about the thermos gas, you know, because that price increase is just going to make, you know, this winter just unlovable for some people. Like, we live in one of the most richest societies in the world, yet the levels of inequalities and poverty in our society is really a shameful representation of our government. And, you know, our Stormont executive has never been threatened with collapse over bringing in the bedroom tax, over the 2-child cap, over the introduction of these cruel welfare reforms, or over this 20-point cut to universal credit. And, you know, we really need to wake up, you know, about the serious crisis, the poverty crisis in our society. And, you know, and we need to look at really introducing a wealth tax, so the richest in society pay the costs for many of the crises that we're finding ourselves in. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neil. Councillor Farrell, do you have a matter arising to him?
I do. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've got two indicated in the chat box. Both are relating to McGee expansion. The first one is 347. So at July's meeting, I raised the issue that there was a lack of clarity and a lack of certainty regarding the permanent location of the medical school. And the response from the Chief Executive suggested that Ulster University's preferred location was along the riverfront, and that Council, as a body corporate, were awaiting correspondence from the university to open up discussions in earnest. That was 2 months ago. So my question is, has that correspondence been received? And if so, have discussions taken place or began? So that's my first question. So can we take that first?
Chief Executive?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, I'm pleased to advise that we have received correspondence from Ulster University in August confirming its interest in acquiring the council site on the Strand Road. Since then, I've organised a meeting with senior officers of Ulster University just a week or so ago to broadly scope their request to identify initial considerations. And I intend bringing the matter next to a meeting of the Capital Working Group in October, and thereafter with a view to bringing a paper on the subject for members' consideration to the November round of committees.
Thank you, John. That's excellent news, and it looks like great progress, specifically around the medical school and our ambitions for the riverfront in general. So that's good news. My next one's probably not so positive. So my next one's on 394. So 394 was responses to motions at our last meeting. And it was specifically around the response from Gordon Lyons regarding the New Decade, New Approach commitment for 10,000 students at McGee. I had a midnight rant at the last meeting regarding his response, which was brief, uninformative, and ultimately disappointing. In my view, the DUP and the Economy Minister are playing political dodgeball with this council. They're ducking, diving, dodging, dipping at every available opportunity. Only at Business and Culture 2 weeks ago, we were expecting a delegation from the Economy Department to attend to discuss regional balance and Invest NI performance in the Northwest. They agreed to attend on 3 separate occasions, and they reneged on 3 separate occasions at the very last minute. I think everyone in the meeting was in agreement that they need to be invited back, and they need to be invited back as soon as practically possible. And it was suggested that we have a special meeting because there are a lot of issues to discuss which are within the remit of the Economy Minister. So I would like to make a proposal that one of those agenda points is the New Decade, New Approach commitment to 10,000 students, because it is clear from the Economy Minister's response that he is not committed to that at all. And I also think we should invite officials from Ulster University to that meeting. So I'm going to put that in the chat box now for everybody to see it.
Chair, I'll second that proposal, Brian Tierney.
Okay. Can I ask, is it Teresa? Someone, can we get that up on the screen, or can everybody see it from the chat box? So members, there's the proposals there. It's been proposed and seconded. Is there anybody wishes to comment on it?
Chair or Deputy Mayor, Sinn Féin are happy to support.
Yeah. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you also, Rory. Understand the frustration that's within the proposal. And I don't see an issue in supporting that. However, as Councillor Farr knows himself, there were other issues that we expected the Economy Minister and indeed economy officials to attend to be addressed by this council. So would it be the proposer's intention that this is a single agenda engagement with the Economy Minister? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Can I come
Councillor
back on
Farrell,
there?
yeah, do
Deputy
you want to
Mayor?
provide a bit of clarity on that?
Well, my understanding of the discussion of business and culture, we have been asking for 18 months for representatives from the economy department, preferably the minister, to come to this council chamber to discuss regional balance, to discuss Invest NI performance in the Northwest, to ensure that Invest NI have strict targets in place for job creation, foreign direct investment visits, wage levels, and economic activity. That was the purpose of this meeting request. I think it was suggested by Councillor Lowe that we have a special meeting. I did not disagree with that, but I do feel that McGee, the pressing issue of McGee, the pressing issue of 10,000 students at McGee, and ultimately the economy of the Northwest of Ireland, which will be driven by more students and a bigger graduate pool in this city, should be on that agenda as well. So to answer Alderman Hussey's question, McGee should be a specific agenda point on it, but investment and targeted investment from the economy department should also be on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Thanks, Chair. There's no issue at all with the proposal, and we're happy to support it. But it's just to make the point, as Chair of the Business and Culture Committee, that a letter had already been sent, as I understand, from myself as Chair to the Minister of the Economy, making this request. So I'm just making members aware of that.
Thank you, Conor. Councillor Gallagher, is it on this item?
It is, Chair, and I would like to bring a slight amendment to it.
This hasn't been voted on yet, so I'm going to have to come
that.
back to you. I have to come back to you. Is there anybody else on this proposal?
Deputy Mayor, point of order for
No,
Brian McCready here.
apologies. No,
No worries.
Councillor Gallagher, go ahead. You can put an amendment there. Apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's in the chat box.
Just for clarity, is that in addition to the end of the?
At the very end.
Yeah.
Chair, and if I could just speak on it, because this and this target has been around for a very long time, and we've had numerous engagements, and we have seen massive amount of money going to Belfast University, and we've seen actually numbers drop in Ulster University, and some of their public announcements is that they won't be talking to this target, and I think that Ulster University needs to be aware that this council is going to set up, it's going to take notice, and we need to take on further considerations if this target's not met immediately. Thank you, Chair.
See, just because I was a bit confused, Councillor Gallagher, I believe there might be a typo in your.
Right.
It's the second last word. Is it now or not?
Sorry. It's not.
No, it makes a lot more sense now.
Thank you, Chair.
Is there anybody wants to speak on the amendment?
John Boyle, just briefly.
Yeah,
it's not really. It's I suppose it's a question for Councillor Gallagher, but I don't see anywhere in the body of the original motion any reference to a target, and so therefore I'm curious as to what target it is that Councillor Gallagher is referencing in the amendment. I mean, I'm fairly sure I know what it is, but it needs to be in the body of the amendment. Deputy Mayor, I'm sure you would agree with me.
Well, Chair, just to come back, it's, I mean, if we look at what the commitment is, the commitment is the target. And if that commitment's not met, the target won't be met. Just for clarification.
Councillor Perkin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just briefly on this, I was happy to second it because I think that we're all aware of the frustrations we have in terms of moving forward with McGee, and we need to kind of keep pressing on it. And I think it's well established that the target is 10,000, and I presume that's what Paul's talking about. So, I mean, if that needs to be, I don't know if that needs to be written in because it's so well established. I mean, it used to be 20,000, but now it's 10. But I think that we're all aware that the target right now is 10,000, and that when the provost or vice chancellor was here, he was talking about 7,000, but even that would be a stretch in his from his point of view. So that's I don't know if Paul wants to amend it to include 10,000. I don't know if I don't think it's necessary.
I don't believe it's necessary there. I think the commitment in the new decade, new approach spells it out what the target is. So in terms of the amendment that's in front of us, are we content to go to a vote? Are we content? I'm not hearing anybody speaking against it. Is there anybody who doesn't support the amendment that's in front of us, or can I take that as unanimous?
Mayor, can I ask a question? Sorry, Deputy Mayor, can I ask a question? No issue at all with what's on screen. I was made aware recently that my predecessor had put together a motion around about basically what is in red there and was passed by council before my time. I'm wondering if that's still valid or if anybody knows. As far as I was aware, it was along the lines that of what has been proposed there in the red, that if council wasn't content that Ulster University was delivering on 10,000 students, that we would have conversations with other providers. I just want to clarify that, but I have absolutely no issue with the text.
Yes.
Chief Executive.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor, there is a standing position of council through a previous notice of motion along the lines that you've mentioned, Councillor Doyle. I don't have the exact wording of it in front of me. I'm fairly sure that it was more than 6 months ago, and therefore it's perfectly acceptable that a further notice of motion be brought, especially if it's one that's not contradictory in any way, which this is, I would believe.
Okay, as I'm sensing, or I'm not hearing anybody with a contrary view. So unless anybody indicates no, I'm going to take the amendment as unanimous. Okay, the amendment is unanimous. Now going back to the substantive motion. Again, is there anybody that isn't supportive of the substantive motion, or can I take that as unanimous? Okay, that's unanimous. So, members, for item number 300 or C365, there's a number of speakers. First of which is Councillor Doyle. So, Councillor Doyle, I know you've indicated for 2 items for matters arising, but can we stick to the first one, 365, and then after Councillor Doyle, it's Councillor Tierney and Councillor Heaney under matter C365.
Yep, no problem, Deputy Mayor. Mine was just really to welcome the correspondence we had got back with regards to the sub-regional stadia programme that I'd raised under this item previously, and to urge officers to arrange the meeting with those officials and all the relevant stakeholders as quickly as possible, because the level of frustration, I think, around the Brandywell is fairly high, but also the real desire to see phase 2 developed as quickly as possible, given that we've gone through a lot of the processes as a council, is something that's very important. So just wanted to place that on the record and maybe see if, I'm not sure whether John or Ellen maybe have an update on whether that meeting has been arranged or not. Thank you.
Ellen, have we got any information around?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, it's my understanding that the briefing's confirmed for the 25th of October.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And I have both my questions have been answered. But if you don't mind, Chair, I think we need to have a matter of accuracy on this particular proposal that went through Council. And part 2 of the proposal, it says, we'll ask for officials from the department to brief members on the plans for phase 2 of the Brandywell. It's phase 2 of the regional subsidia fund. It's not phase 2 of the Brandywell, because it's my understanding that the department officials wouldn't be aware of our plans for phase 2 of the Brandywell. So it's about the phase 2 of the fund as opposed to phase 2 of the Brandywell. And I think that's very important, because they wouldn't know what exactly they tell us. I was going to ask, was there any update on the meeting? I welcome the fact that Ellen is telling us it's the 25th of October. It can't come quick enough for many Derry City fans. And I also welcome the communication that we've got back. I think this is a good step in the right direction. But again, Councillor Doyle has mentioned that meeting with the department and stakeholders of the Brandywell. The notice of motion is clear. It's for Council to be told about the regional subsidia funding. It's not it was my understanding, and it was my proposal. It's my understanding that it wasn't for stakeholders of the Brandywell, this particular meeting. And can we just get clarity from officers on that, please?
Ellen, do you want to come in on that?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I mean, I can't provide specific clarity, but certainly the briefing is confirmed for members on the 25th. So as I say, any further dissemination of information, I think, can be determined at that stage. Thank you.
Chair, I know there's a number of speakers on this, but if I can just come back on, if you don't mind.
Very briefly. I know
very briefly. It was my proposal at the last full council meeting, and it states it very clearly there on the minutes. The meeting was so that councillors could be fully aware of what the plans were for the regional subsidia funding and when it was going to be released, what the parameters they obtained funding were, and who and how many organisations could apply. It wasn't for stakeholders. I made the point very clearly at the last meeting that if we were to open it to stakeholders, because if you remember, Councillor Doyle actually had Derry City in his proposal, and we took that out for this specific reason. It's about the funding. It's not about phase 2 of the Brandywell. And let's not be confusing things, because people, and there's lots and lots of Derry City fans who will be expecting to be called to this meeting. And I think it's important that we get the right detail and that we're voting on the right stuff. Thank you.
And hope I have no doubt that the minutes of the meeting and the proposal will coming from the meeting will be amended as such. Councillor Heaney.
Thanks, Chair. I just briefly wanted to commend and welcome also the swift reply from the Department of Communities. I'm delighted to hear now that date has actually been set for the meeting, and just compare and contrast the approach from this department to the approach from the Department of the Economy, who was touched on earlier in the remarks about their lack of presence in coming to council. So I just wanted to welcome that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman McClintock.
Mayor, and just to concur with Councillor Tierney, I look forward to this meeting on the 25th of October because this is about awareness about the funding. It's not all about the Brandywell or Derry City, because there are other clubs within our area, for example, Institute, who will be very interested in finding out more information through yourselves about this funding. So just to concur with Councillor Tierney on this. Thank you.
Okay, there's no further speakers on this, but like I'm sure other councillors on the call, I've get quite a lot of questions around this particular issue on social media, and it's something that there is quite a lot of interest generated, and no doubt that meeting in October will provide the clarity needed in terms of the funding that's potentially coming downstream. Councillor Doyle, your second matter arising, 394.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And as was raised at that meeting, and as I've done before, I recognise now that we have a new district commander in place in the Strand Road. I believe his name's Ryan Henderson. And I had said at the meeting where we had previously discussed this that I would reissue this council's invite for him to come and speak to members and answer questions in relation to his officers and their tactics, as I had done before. I'm going to put that in the chat box now. And I would say, just for the record, that the district commander's been in contact with me, and it seems at least that he has got a different approach to things. So perhaps we may well get the district commander before us at some point. So I would just like us to reissue that letter to invite the district commander to this council, as we have previously done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Teresa's got it up on the screen. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, look, my voting on this is going to be the same as it was the last time. I don't think there's any place for the commander of British Police in the council, but so I'll not be supporting this. But what I would say is that there's other nationalist councillors who can have no problem getting a full day with the chief constable or a private audience with the local commander, and perhaps Councillor Doyle should go down that route. Maybe they could use their influence and they could have their wee meeting. But how productive this meeting is, it's going to be virtually of no value to the people who are under the jackboot of this force on a daily basis. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comments on the proposal from Councillor Doyle, which is yet to be seconded?
Deputy Mayor, it's Alderman Devaney here.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
No, you're okay.
Is there anybody prepared to second the proposals in front of us? It's seconded by Councillor Riley. Alderman Devaney, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I thought it was seconded somewhere in the group chat, but maybe I got mixed up. I have no problem with the proposal here. Look forward to the new commander coming in to the council. And I just want to go back to Councillor Doyle. And he talks about the new commander, a different style. Has Councillor Doyle even requested a meeting with the new commander for his own personal discussions and around that, or is it just that he wants him into the chamber? We all have the right as parties and groups that we go and meet the new commander. I'm just wondering, has he went down that avenue, or has he turned down maybe an invitation to meet the commander? I would just like a wee update on that information, Deputy Mayor, from Councillor Doyle.
Well, I don't want to get into a back and forth. The proposal it's in front of us. I suppose if there's a private request went done, it's irrelevant. There's a proposal in front of us as council, and I just want to stick to the matter at hand. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We will support the proposal. but I would like to point out that there are mechanisms that are currently in place for holding the police to account. They were hard fought for mechanisms in terms of the PCSP, the Policing Board and the Ombudsman's Office, and those are the mechanisms that we should be using. Now that doesn't limit it to that, which is why we will support the proposal. We also have no problem in meeting the police privately if there's issues that we wish to raise. And Deputy Mayor, I do believe that you met with the police last week in relation to an issue in the waterside, and that is what political parties do in terms of holding police into account. But I would also like to put on record that the last time we made this request, there were independent members of the PCSP who have gone through rigorous interview process to get onto the PCSP, and they felt that their role was being diminished by the council looking for a separate meeting. Just want to put that on record, but I'm happy to support the proposal at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Riley.
Yeah,
Martin?
thanks, Deputy Mayor. And as with the previous speaker, just to to agree with Sandra in relation to the fact that there are many non-political independent members of the PCSP who give up their time and take on that role very responsibly and are committed to making policing work in the northwest and across the council area. So I think that those citizens should be thanked for the work that they do, and they do hold the police to account through the PCSP. And in the recent meeting that we had with them, we made the point about the need for the PCSP to be back having public meetings again as soon as is possible, given the COVID restrictions, because I think that that is important, that people have that opportunity to put questions to the PSNI directly from people, not just elected members or members of the PCSP. So that is something that is already been raised by our party, and indeed others that sit on the PCSP. And in relation to the PCSP, Mayor or Deputy Mayor, it is important to note that those positions are nominated to by this council, and people have the choice to or not to, as they so wish, make choices when they're nominating to those positions. So there are people who say that that the PCSP is not there way forward, but for those that do value the opportunity to hold policing to account, the PCSP is the way to do that, and people can make nominations as per their mandate from the people that we all represent. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duffy, I know you've...
Apologies, Deputy Mayor, I know I've already had an opportunity to speak, but I was just going to suggest a short amendment that we also invite the independent members of the PCSP to attend any meeting of council. I can put that in the chat box if needed. There we
go. Second that, Chair, Alderman Devaney.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Teresa. So members on the amendment.
Chair, point of order, please.
Councillor Tierney, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, surely, and I have no issue in terms of members of the PCSP coming to meet and join with councillors. They meet with the PSNI, but surely the wording of that amendment cannot be acceptable. And also invite the independent members of PCSP to attend any meeting organised by council. So does that mean that the PCSP members can go to the bonfire working group meeting or go to the price and policy working group meeting? That cannot be acceptable there, and it needs to be changed here. Can we get a ruling on that from the city solicitor, please?
Okay, you've requested a ruling. Philip, I think there needs to be a degree of common sense in relation to this, but Philip, do you want to come on?
Chair, the amendment obviously has to be read in the context of the motion
which is before us. The motion specifically relates to a meeting between the district commander and the PSNI, to which he would be invited to deal with these concerns which are raised. And I think it's quite apparent from the motion read in its entirety that it is that meeting that the independent members would be invited to.
Okay, and I know we're just sort of we are working on an amendment that was orally and it wasn't typed into the chat box, but I suppose just to get around the point that was raised by Councillor Tierney, and they reflect the comments of the meeting. The word any meeting organised by council, if that was replaced by this meeting organised by council, then that's or such as suggested by Councillor Boyle. But it's in my view, it means the same thing when you're reading the entire proposal in its entirety. Can we make that small amendment, the small change, to replace any by this? Right. Is there any further comments on the amendment? I'm sensing that I know Councillor Gallagher or Councillor Donnelly indicated that he wouldn't be in support of the initial proposal. And Councillor Gallagher's indicated that he's abstaining. I'm going to
Chair, it's Deputy Mayor, it's Councillor Harkin here, and we'll be abstaining too.
Yeah, I'm going to just ask the Chief Executive to take us through a vote on this. John.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So it's on the amendment, members. Alderman Breslin.
For.
Alderman Devaney.
For.
Alderman Guy. Alderman Guy.
For John.
Alderman Hussey.
Aye, for.
Alderman Carrigan.
For.
Alderman McClintock.
For.
Alderman McCready.
For.
Alderman Ramsey.
For.
Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Councillor John Boyle.
For.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
For John.
Councillor Carr.
Abstain, John.
Councillor Cusick.
For.
Councillor Dobbins.
For John.
Councillor Donnelly.
Against.
Councillor Doyle.
For.
Councillor Duffy.
For.
Councillor Edwards.
For John.
Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Ferguson.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For John.
Councillor Gallagher.
Abstain.
Councillor Harkin.
Abstain.
Councillor Heaney.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor McGinley.
For.
Councillor McHugh.
For John.
Councillor McKeever. Sorry, he's not here. Councillor McKinney.
John.
Sorry, say again, Councillor McKinney.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mooney.
For.
Councillor O'Neill.
Abstain.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Tierney.
For.
Thank you.
Wasn't called.
Just while we're waiting for a result of that vote, I'm just there's been a number of declarations of interest in the chat box. I'm just going to take it for granted that all the PCSP members' interests will be declared.
So, Deputy Mayor, I've recorded 28 for, 1 against, and 4 abstentions. So the amendment passes.
Okay, members,
Deputy Mayor John Boyle here. Do you mind if I come in briefly? I think there might have been a couple of names missed out on the roll call there. If the Chief Executive could double check. I didn't hear Councillor St. Barr's name read out.
I wasn't called.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, certainly didn't call you, Councillor St. Bar. I thought you weren't here when we did the roll call. You weren't there at the time, so apologies if you've come in since.
I texted there to be marked as present.
My apologies if you've come in since. Quite happy to take your vote at this point.
It's 4, please.
Thank you. You indicated, Councillor Boyle, that there were other councillors that I hadn't called.
Perhaps not. I'll trust your judgment on that one, but I was aware of Councillor St. Bar not being called Chief Executive. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members I didn't call? Okay, thank you, members. That's 29 for, 1 against and 4 abstentions.
Okay, so the amendment has passed and now becomes a substantive motion. Is there any comments on the substantive motion, or no? I'm going to ask, is there anybody who wishes to change their vote from the vote that we've just taken on the amendment on the substantive motion? So I'm assuming that by calling a vote, we would have the 29 for, 1 against, and how many abstentions? 4 abstentions. So that motion has passed. Going to move on now to the next matter arising, and it's from Alderman Hussey, 382.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. 382 is the motion with regard to the walking tour of Strabane and Castlederg, and I welcome the fact that a date has been set for that. However, that's the good news. The bad news is there is a clash of dates. The date that has been chosen is the same day as the AGM of the National Association of Councillors. I know it would impact on me, and I'm torn between two stools, to be very honest. Both are important. The National Association of Councillors, and all will agree. Sorry, as I'm sure all will agree, but also as a Derry councillor, I'm very keen to ensure that I can be present at the walking tour when it comes to the length of Castlederg. I don't know if this impacts on any other councillors who may have been considering, particular city councillors, coming to Strabane and to Castlederg. I have already made contact with Rachel Craig in regard to this, but I'm trying to suss through yourself, Deputy Mayor. Are there many that would be impacted, and would it be acceptable if a different date was investigated for the walking tour? The proposed date's the 15th of October. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Hussey. When I throw it open to the floor, and the first indicated speaker is Alderman Kerrigan. Keith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me. And I do again raise similar concerns myself with that Alderman Hussey has raised. And I know, to be fair, as far as I'm aware, the National Association of Councillors, myself and Alderman Breslin and Alderman Devaney, who are again to spurn the councillors, would all be expected to attend the AGM in Cookstown on that morning. So you're kind of affecting, the three of us representing there. Is I was in two minds. I says I'll see what we can try and do, if we can try to split some men to go one direction and others to go the other. But as I say, if it's handy to change the date, I'm content. But I'll leave it in the officer's hands, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anybody else who wishes to come on this? Councillor Michaela Boyle.
Yes, Chair.
And I'm just, the itinerary is, I mean, I don't know the time of the National Association for Councillors meeting, AGM, but I do know the DARE walkabout is early morning. So maybe if the officer was of mind to switch the Strabane one to the morning time to suit, I don't know, I'm not aware of the time of the meeting for the AGM, but if that's a possibility, just that we could switch the Strabane one to the morning time and the Castlederg one to the afternoon.
Chair, to come very briefly back, the meeting's actually 10:30, as Alderman Kerrigan has put in there. That's the AGM, but it's in Cookstown, so getting back in time could prove difficult. I don't know. And of course, Spurn councillors are impacted as well, as Alderman Kerrigan has already said.
Just as a way of progressing this, can I ask everybody who would be impacted by this, can they make contact with Rachel and if appropriate, a different date will be set up, or a different time will be set up, but I don't think we're going to be in a position across the floor to manage people's diaries at this stage. So can we ask people separately to go, they make contact with Rachel, and I have no doubt that she will do everything possible to ensure that she can accommodate, or the visit can accommodate everyone that needs to be there.
I appreciate that, Deputy Mayor. Just one wee thing raises out of it. I'm concerned that the AGM of the NIC wasn't actually in our members' diaries. The electronic diary that council would refer to. I'm not sure why that would be, but perhaps that's something that can be looked at as well. Thank you.
Yeah, the point's been well made. Moving on to Alderman McCready, you indicated that there was a matter arising. Alderman McCready.
Council remove. Thanks.
Okay. So I have no further indicated. I know the chat box is a bit clustered. It's quite busy. But I'm not picking up any other matter arising out of the chat box. So I'm going to move on now to the monthly, the adoption of the open minutes for the following committees. Item 8 in our packs. The first one being 8A, the monthly governance and strategic planning committee, held on Tuesday the 7th of September, pages 59 to 94. Firstly, for accuracy.
Happy to propose those, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Riley.
I second it.
So proposed, Councillor Riley, seconded, Alderman Breslin. Matters arising. Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, this is in regarding GSP 137/21, where there's obviously a significant portion of the discussion there regards the city deal, and I wanted to raise an issue of concern about the city deal. I read in the local press that there was a very important conference held on September 8th, attended by the NIO, by Tory MPs, by Sinn Féin, SDLP, DUP ministers, and others, Invest NI, about implementing the city deal. That's what it was called. So this is it was described in the local press as a very significant and important gathering. I hadn't heard anything about this conference, and then I found out that it cost £200 plus to go to. And a lot of people have been asking, who was this conference for? Was there any decisions made at it about the city deal? Was the council in attendance? Was Unity of Purpose in attendance? And a conference where major decisions are made and a major discussion is happening about what's happening to so much money coming into our district that costs more than £200 for people to attend, raises serious questions, because that locks out the vast majority of people in this district from being able to attend. One, people wouldn't have known about this conference. Two, even if they did know, they wouldn't have been able to afford to go. So think about it. We're campaigning to stop universal credit from being cut £20 a week. This conference to attend would have cost a person £200 plus. So it's essentially not for anybody that's on universal credit. If you're a health worker who's facing a real terms pay cut because of the imposition of this 3% pay offer, you're not going to be attending this conference. And the list goes on. I mean, people who are being hit by energy hikes are not going to be able to attend a £200 ticket conference. So it seems like the only way you're getting into this conference to speak to be part of a discussion with ministers, with the big parties, with the NIO, is if you can afford £200. So it's pay to play. That's what this sounds like, and it raises serious concerns about how this city deal is being moved forward. We have raised lots of issues about who's going to benefit from this city deal, and it already smacks of like a political elite shaping things behind people's backs and asking at a cost to get entry, basic entry of more than £200. So if we could get an update or any information from council officers, if they attended, and what they think of a conference that most of us didn't know about. I just think that this is important to get on record, and I would appreciate it if people have information or similar concerns to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harkin. I'm going to bring the Chief Executive on. I don't expect the Chief Executive to express his opinion on the event, but just they give any or to try and provide some clarity around what the event was. Chief Executive.
Deputy Mayor, the only thing I can say is that it wasn't a council event, it wasn't endorsed by council, and it wasn't organised by council. So I'm not aware of any council officers attending the event. I certainly wasn't on the event.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hussey, or Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Doesn't matter what you call me. Deputy Mayor, I did attend this conference, and indeed I made contact with the Chief Executive beforehand because I had a concern that when I looked at the list of contributors, there was no contribution, official contribution from our Chief Executive and from relevant council officials who have been tremendously involved, positively involved in the whole city deal process. I had that concern. The decision was that council weren't being represented. I took it upon myself and booked myself and paid to go on to that conference. I did express what I've just said, my concern to the organisers, that it appears that you know they weren't engaging with the main player, and I think you know I didn't come away from the conference with a different opinion. I continue to share that opinion. As I say, I attended in my own personal situation. I take on board the point from Councillor Harkin, but I think you'll find a lot of these conferences, the fees are there for those to attend them. As the Chief Executive has said, Council itself did actually organise a very successful City Deal conference prior to this particular event, which I think was free and open to all to attend. But the conference, as I say, I felt it was important to attend and to express the opinion as to the absence of input direct from the officers and officials from this council involved who should have been part of that agenda. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I believe that this conference was set up by the Policy Forum for Northern Ireland, which I believe is a private company, because this had actually come up an issue with me before, and I had spoken to the chief executive about it. I had been asked to speak at it. I initially agreed, and then when saw that this was going to be a fairly exclusive event, pulled out. I do think it's important that our members who went to it or spoke at it should declare it as an interest. I do think that, well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I totally agree with what Sean has said about it being an exclusive event, because I mean, I would struggle to pay 200 quid to go to a conference, never mind people who are struggling with universal credit cuts. But at the same time, it's, if people want to have discussions around the city deal, they should, as long as the decision-making power has to be made very clear that the decision and the buck stops with members here, and not with people who want to hold conferences and talk away around it. So I would like to know who did go, in what capacity, because whilst I know Derek has said that he went individually, we have to make sure that people aren't going to be influenced by any of these conferences, because ultimately this council is the body that will make decisions around how we implement the strategic growth plan. Thank you.
Okay, and I've no doubt whoever went will be in touch to let you know. Because I know we've been told by the chief executive that there's that this wasn't a council event and there was nobody from council that attended in a council capacity. But if there was any individuals that attended that wishes to let Councillor Doyle know who was in attendance, then feel free to do so. Alderman McCready.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So firstly, I can declare an interest. I did attend this event. I didn't pay for it. I pushed back and said, I don't think we should pay for it. Maybe I got lucky, but I seen the event online. I have seen other events where Policy Forum NI, and I've spoken at many of them, because I will use any opportunity I can to represent my constituents and engage with people, whether they're politicians, key influencers, or stakeholders around my region. So I certainly don't regret going. I will continue to exert my influence wherever I can. But I do take the 2 points. The first point from Member Harkin. These events, and when you look at the private sector and business, irrespective of what sector it is, this is a sector of business within itself. This is not a council event or anything, and they do charge, they do get panelists, they do get speakers and the like. So that's the first thing. It is a private event. You do pay for it. Secondly, the point from Member Doyle, I, like him, couldn't afford to pay £200. That's why I refused to pay it, and so they wanted me more than I wanted to pay 200 quid, I suppose. But I felt compelled to every chance I will get, I will champion our city and our district, and to make sure our voices are heard, and that those people who seek to come to those events, or those that are chairing panels and events, they know exactly the rationale behind, and certainly me as an individual who's been duly elected, and what my people think. So I'll do everything I can to make sure we get as much inward investment, external, international investment into our city, because time and time again, we're always at the bottom of statistics, whether it's homelessness, housing, unemployment, that brain drain. Well, you have to do something about it, and I did do something about it, and I'll continue to do so. But I do accept 2 points. They're very valid. But that's just in the spirit of transparency. I'll continue to do it again. So thanks very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for a chance to speak on that.
Okay, Councillor Duffy.
Chair, thank you. Yeah, on this, thank you for letting me on. Chair, I'm not even sure what conference Councillor Harkin is referring to. I wasn't at any conference in relation to City Deal, but you see, if a private company wants to hold a conference on City Deal, we have no control over that as a council area. But absolutely, if we have reps who have been asked to speak at it or asked to attend it, then they should attend and give full account of what this council area has to offer and what we're doing, and promote it, as Alderman McCready has just outlined there. So in terms of, to say if it was a council run event and we were charging people £200 to attend it and there was decisions to be made and all that at it, then I can see Councillor Harkin's issue. But you see, at the end of the day, if a private entity wants to hold a conference, we have no control or no say over that, but we should be represented at it if it is in relation to the city deal that is happening here. So I think we're having a wee bit of a nonsense discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to come on this? I know that Councillor Harkin feels the need to respond, but there's quite a lot of business to get through today. And I want to give others the opportunity to come on. No. Councillor Harkin, very, very briefly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate that there's other business, and I do appreciate the points that numerous people made. Yes, I don't, as Councillor Duffy said, we should be represented. Our council wasn't represented, except for Councillor Hussey, who went there on his own behalf and raised these very points. And I also looked at the attendee list, and it included Dalradian Gold. And I do wonder what Dalradian Gold is doing involved in a discussion about implementing the city deal when so much is at stake for our district in terms of how this money is spent. And also when there are serious questions about Dalradian Gold's plans for our district. And so that raises another red flag to me. I don't know if they ultimately attended, but they're on the attendee list, as are other big corporations who will seek to influence the direction that our city goes in. And this is a billion pound company, or a very, very wealthy organization that many people have fears will plunder the sparings for profit. And here they are at an event that costs more than £200 to attend, that the vast majority of councillors know nothing about, and that the vast majority of people in our district know nothing about. So of course, people have the right to attend whatever conference they want. But when I read newspaper reports where MLAs from Foyle are celebrating the fact that they were at this very important conference about implementing the city deal, I think it raises red flags for lots of people, because the vast majority of people have no idea what the discussions were. And the fact that you've got big corporations like Dalradian Gold involved raises red flags. So I don't think it's a nonsense to raise this. I think it's actually very important. Thank you.
No, and I don't believe that anybody has said that it was a nonsense. They raised this. It was a very important point they raised. I think the point what has been reiterated, that this was not a council event, and that it wasn't a decision-making body, and that's something that I suppose is the point. But the point has been very well made. Councillor Tierney, are you coming in on this?
Just very briefly, Chair. I think you sort of covered it yourself, but obviously I'm very conscious that these meetings are streamed live to the internet, and listening to some of the speakers, you would nearly think that this event was drafting plans and proposals on how the money for the city deal was spent. And I think it's really, really important that we send out a message that they could have agreed absolutely anything at this meeting, which, like others, I was asked to attend but refused. But it won't change the plans for the city deal. This council and the stakeholders that were involved in the city deal right from the very outset will be the decision-making body who will outline how and where and what the city deal money will be spent on, which has already been outlined. And the 10 projects are there for people to see. We can't stop this. I think it was Councillor Duffy said, anybody having a discussion about the city deal or expressing their opinion, but it's the opinion and the opinions of elected members and the people who are tasked with rolling out the city deal money that will have the biggest impact on that. And I think that's very, very important to put out, because I don't want a message going out that any third party in any discussions that they were having is going to influence how the city deal money is spent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Guy, matter arising from governance and strategic planning.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for letting me in. And it's under GSP 14321. Last year, Council decided to give an offer of a birthday holiday to all members of staff as a thank you for working through the pandemic. I'd just like to ask, if a council employee was furloughed or absent from work through illness, are they still entitled to that particular holiday award? And that's a question for Paula, probably.
Is Paula on the call?
She is not on the call, Deputy Mayor. My initial reaction to that request, subject to double checking it with HR, is that yes, they should be entitled to that day's leave. That was certainly the intention. Is there a specific issue, Alderman Guy, that you want to raise with me?
No, that's all right. I'll speak with Paula about it later. But that's okay. No, it's answered my question there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, members. There's no more matters arising for the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee. I'm going to move on now to 8B, the Monthly Planning Committee, held on Wednesday the 8th of September, pages 95 to 104 for accuracy.
I propose those, Chair. John Boyle.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's the, okay, thank you. Proposed by Councillor Boyle, seconded by Alderman Breslin. Matters arising for the Planning Committee held on 8th of September. No matters arising. Moving on to 8C, the reconvened Planning Committee held on Thursday the 9th of September. For
Yes,
accuracy.
Deputy Mayor.
I'll second.
Proposed Councillor Boyle, second
Councillor McKinley.
Councillor McKinley. Thank you. Any matters arising from the reconvened meeting? No. Moving on to 8D, which is the monthly business and culture meeting.
So proposed, Deputy Mayor Alderman Devaney.
Seconded for accuracy.
Councillor Haney.
Thank you, Councillor Haney. So Alderman Devaney and Councillor Haney. Matters arising.
Chair.
Alderman McClintock.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, for letting me in.
Sorry. Rory, do you want to raise a matter of accuracy? Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I don't want to be a pedant, but at BC 145, we're referring to the Economy Minister, who is Mr. Gordon Lyons, as she and her. Hopefully that's a typo, so if that could be corrected, please.
Okay, I'm sure it will. Alderman McClintock.
Just Councillor Farrell for making that amendment. I think that was very well spotted. It's on B&C 146/21. And Deputy Mayor, I'm using this Christmas 2021 point just to raise an issue. It's the only place I could see to bring it in. We're all concerned about issues that might arise at Christmas time and other times regarding the shortage of HGV drivers. And what I was wondering is, has any consideration been given to officers about offering specific assistance regarding upskilling or improving opportunities within the logistics industry. And the reason I ask this, Deputy Mayor, is because I'm aware that Antrim and Newton Abbey Council have launched a logistics training academy, which will work alongside the Jobs and Benefits Office, and it will fund up to £1,500 per individual. And I'm just wondering, do we have any similar initiative within Derry City and Strabane District Council? And if not, could I suggest that our council officers look at the scheme and see if it's something that is viable to look at within our own council area? Thank you.
I've just seen that Stephen has indicated. Stephen, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, we are working on a similar scheme. We're preparing the tender documents now to go out because we need to obviously employ a training organisation, etc. So that's all being done, and it'll be the paper will come forward to B&C for members' approval. But it is an issue that we clearly recognise is important, and we are working on it as we speak.
I should have known you were on it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, if I may come in on that one as well, just to mention that the issue of shortage of HGV drivers may have an impact on council as well, and that we rely on quite a few of our staff who are HGV drivers, so that we are putting in place contingency measures with regard to that as well, and looking at the upskilling of a range of our own staff with regard to our own services, which obviously do rely on the expertise of many HGV drivers.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, and thanks, John, for that. Councillor McKinney, on this.
Yeah, thank you for letting me in, sir. I've spoken this on quite a few occasions on Radio Foil. It's definitely a problem that just sending a message out to bring for 3 months people across from Europe to cover it won't work. I can tell you now that the Jobs and Benefit offices are asking people to sign up to go across and be trained, and they will pay for it. So if council maybe like to pass that around to constituents that are maybe looking for a work or career change, that's what they should do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKinney. Councillor Harkin.
This is on this, Deputy Mayor, and I'm glad it's been raised. Look, because of the private companies are offering tremendous amounts of money right now to sign up HGV drivers, it's actually put pressures on councils across the water. People may have seen that they've lost, bin lorry drivers and so on. I've been speaking to some of our own council staff who have raised this issue. Now, if we want to hold on to our staff and not lose them to transportation companies that are offering a lot of money, I think we have to take very seriously the trade union demand, the United Trade Union demand from all the unions for a 10% pay increase for all council workers. This is a motion that we've passed at the council, and if we want to hold on to people, that would be the kind of action we would be taking to do that. Otherwise, you can't blame people if they are offered a huge contract to work for a private company, and this has been impacting councils already across the water. So I think that we have to think about that in terms of the pay increase and the pay award that has been campaigned for and demanded for. The offer right now is 1.75%, which is way below even what inflation is, and nowhere near the 10% that the unions are demanding for all council workers right across the north and across the water. And if we lose workers because we aren't willing to actually pay them properly, that will be not great for our district. So I think this is something we should hopefully planners, HR will be thinking about this, and it's something council, our own drivers are thinking about as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harkin. I know Councillor McKinney wishes to come back on, but Councillor McKinney, you've already got to speak in this issue, and I'm very keen to move the meeting on. there's a few indicated speakers. Councillor Tierney, did you want to come in under matters arising? I know you.
Not particularly. It's just, I know at the start of the meeting you said you have to verbally declare an interest. So just to do that is on item BC 148/21, as I'm a member of the Bloody Sunday Trust. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Chair, is Councillor McKinney sitting in on the HCV issue?
Councillor McKinney spoke on the HCV issue, and I just want to move the meeting on. Do you wish to raise matter arising?
Yeah, matter arising. It's actually 154 of just the Halloween update on page 136. Towards the end there, I had queried with regard to Castleberg Apple Fair, and at that stage, officers were still liaising with a body in Castleberg, but there was nothing firmed up. Is there any indication of any firming up of arrangements for the end of, well, the end of October, when the Apple Fair will be taking place as part of the Halloween arrangement? So, have arrangements been firmed up with the prospective partnership group that council would be working with? Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not aware of the detail at this stage. I know that there were still ongoing discussions, but I will find out and come back to you directly, Alderman Hussey.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Is there any further matters arising for the monthly business and culture meeting?
Chair, I indicated that there was a few things I wanted to raise.
My apologies. I'm seeing that Councillor Harkin going ahead. My apologies.
Nope, that's fine. Not a problem, Deputy Mayor, at all. It's tough chairing these meetings. This is regarding BC 146 Christmas, and we had, I think, an important discussion there about community spirit and the work that the council's doing to try and ensure as many of our people living across the district have a good festive period, and that we make the district as vibrant as we can. And in the discussion at the committee meeting, I raised the issue of shop all workers that deserving a break at Christmas, and they definitely do. That's what Christmas is all about, and people should be able to enjoy the festive period. And I mentioned that USDA, the shop workers union, have put out an appeal to major retailers to close early on Christmas Day at 4 o'clock, and to close on Boxing Day and also on New Year's Day. And some major employers have already agreed to do that. And that they're also urging employers that do decide to close to pay their workers as they would, based on people's schedules, so that people wouldn't lose out because they get the day off. And that's been taken up as well. So I would like to ask that council write to major retailers in our district area to ask them if they're planning to close early on Christmas Day in response to the USDA request, and urge them to pay people as normal if they decide to do that.
Chair, Councillor Harkin, just I suppose being consistent with our mayor or the mayors who have chaired this meeting before me, is if there's any proposal that's coming out of that's coming out of the meeting that could be submitted as a notice of motion and prior to the meeting, that's the direction of travel that you should be taking. And I see no reason why that motion or that proposal could not be submitted as a notice of motion. They allow all members to give it due consideration. So what I'm going to ask you to do is write that proposal as a notice of motion and submit it to the next council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I believe that you had another matter arising.
I did, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for letting me come in on it. So this is in regard to public artwork, and it was, again, we discussed the upgrading of the Stitch in Time light work at the Rosemount factory, and I think it's very good that that's been progressed. And I also wanted to bring it to Council's attention that the Friends of Factories network, who put up the 8 plaques across the district in factories, former shirt factories, and it's in Columns Hall, that they won an award. It's called the Women's History Network 2021 Community History Prize. And I think this is a significant achievement. The Friends of Factories network is made up of former factory workers, their family members, and a lot of other supporters. And I think that this contribution of putting up the plaques, as people can see them now across the district, I think it's great for the city. I think it's a great way of permanently honouring the shirt factory workers. It's great for other aspects of the city. There's walks planned around them, and I know they're outside different establishments who are very proud to have them. And I just think we should give acknowledgement to the Friends of Factories on the receipt of this award, that it's a major achievement, and that they are planning to further put up more plaques across the district to honour the factory workers. And there's other initiatives planned as well. I was going to suggest that we write a letter basically acknowledging the receipt of the award. I think that would be appreciated from the factory workers and others who are involved in the Friends of Factories campaign. Thank you.
Okay, well, I know we have you've rightly acknowledged the award, and I don't see that it's inappropriate that council that write the recipients to congratulate them. So I've no doubt that council officers will ensure that that's done. Is there anybody who wishes to come on that? No. I don't have any further matters arising from the Business and Culture meeting. So, members, I'm going to suggest we take it. We've now reached the 2-hour mark. I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute comfort break. So it's 7 minutes past 6. Now I'm going to suggest we reconvene at 8 or 6:17. I'll see you all back online shortly. Ready to resume? Going to kick us off again, members. And our next item is 8E. It's a monthly Environment and Regeneration Committee held on Wednesday, the 15th of September. Pages 145 to 158.
So proposed, Alderman Devaney.
For accuracy, Alderman Devaney.
Second, Councillor McHugh.
Okay. So there's no issues with accuracy. Matters are rising for environment and regeneration. There's no matters are rising. Moving on to 8F, which is the monthly Health and Communities Committee held on the Thursday, the 16th of September, pages 159 to 196. For accuracy.
So proposed, Alderman Devaney again.
Okay.
Seconded. Brian Tierney.
Councillor Tierney. Thank you. Matters are rising for health and communities. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's just item 207, I think it was, disappeared off there. 207, forgive me if take a minute to find it again. Darn. Yeah, the healthy cities, and I'm taking an opportunity on page 179 to note the issues on investment in green and blue space and streetscape. And I know Councillor Farrell expressed his opinion. There are fantastic opportunities around the city, and you know how well the city looks and can look with pedestrianisation, etc. And what I want to do is to appeal on the back of that to the city councillors who will be undertaking the walking tour of Strabane and Castlederg, to before they go, just take a look at the public spaces within the city. Look at the Guildhall, Guildhall Square. It looks powerful. Wellington Place, the green areas at the back of City Hall, manicured and immaculate. Go up into the Diamond, take a look at the trees and the flowers that are around them, and keep that in your mind when you come down to Strabane and Castlederg to take your walk around, and just do a comparison of how the place actually looks. Thank you, Mayor, the Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Hussey, and I have no doubt that it's something that everybody who will take part in those that walking tour will take into consideration. Alderman or Councillor Edwards, my apologies, Councillor Edwards.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. And I'm unsure if the correct officers online, but just to echo what Alderman Hussey said there, I see that in CMOs, when chatting about streetscape, that the weed issue has come back, Deputy Mayor, and it's as bad as ever. I was walking through CMOs yesterday and I couldn't believe that after council were in CMOs only a number of weeks ago that the issue has resurfaced again. And I'm just wondering, has council any plans to go back and look at the weeding issue in CMOs along the main street of Melmite Road there? It is particularly bad, probably the worst I've seen in the district so far, around the chapel there in CMOs. I'd appreciate an update. I don't know if Connor Canning's online or not, but if not, I can reach out to him separately. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, as anybody from the Environment and Regeneration Director?
Chair, I can comment on that, and
Sharon has sent me a text to
are
say
the
her
body
Wi-Fi.
responsible for weeds, but I will. Can you hear me or not? Sorry.
Sorry, Karen, we lost you there. Karen, do you want to try with your camera off?
I'll try with my camera off. Can you hear me now, Chair?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, and as I said, I will engage with the divisional roads manager from DFI and with Connor and his team in terms of in relation to that.
Okay, Karen, we got some of you. We must the end of it, but it's something that you've agreed that you will liaise with Connor and his team and the divisional roads manager and get back to members. Going to move on now to Councillor Harkin, matters arising.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, and I want to raise the issue of the health and social workers or social care workers pay offer. As you can see there from the recommendations in the minutes, I believe we passed a very, very strong motion in support of the healthcare workers and their pay demands. The motion reads that we were disappointed to see that the Health Minister fully accepted Boris Johnson's paltry pay recommendation of 3% because it is less than inflation, so it's actually a pay cut, and that we call on Council, we call on the Stormont Executive to ensure that the Health Minister does not impose this insulting pay offer, but instead do everything possible to win and meet the actual pay increase demands of health and social care workers. This made our council look very good in the eyes of healthcare workers, and I talk to a lot of them quite frequently. And I was at a rally today at Stormont where people are furious about the 3% offer because it's increasingly clear with all the the cut to universal credit, rising prices for energy, rising prices for food, rising house prices, that this is a pay cut. It's a real terms pay cut. So the level of anger was immense today at Stormont, and indeed people weren't just angry at Boris Johnson, they're also angry at the Stormont Executive. And the Health Committee, as people may know, of the Stormont Executive met last Thursday and actually voted against this recommendation that the same parties in the council here voted for. So I can't understand, and maybe the executive parties who are here can explain why in the Derry and Strabane Council they're voting to call on the Health Minister and the Stormont Executive not to impose a 3% wage offer on our health and social care workers because it's a pay cut. And then the same parties in the Stormont Executive are voting for that to happen. Because people are asking me what is going on. Why are the executive parties in Derry and Strabane voting against the 3%, and then in Stormont they are green lighting it? I mean, it smacks of hypocrisy, quite frankly. And more people are trying to understand what side is the executive parties on. Are they with Boris Johnson and trashing through this insulting, paltry 3% wage offer, or are they with the healthcare workers and social care workers who are outside Stormont today, getting ready to take strike action if things don't change? And I think that this is a very serious issue because it's at the heart of a lot of the big questions in our society. Our health service, as everybody knows, is on its knees. We're moving into a very challenging period in the winter. We have a recruitment crisis, and we know that our over the last year and a half, our health service workers have bent over backwards to keep people safe. And here they are now, back outside Stormont, basically saying that they are going to have to take strike action because the executive, along with Boris Johnson, is insulting them. So maybe if the executive parties can explain why they're voting two ways, they're voting with the health workers here, and they're voting against them. And I'll finish up there. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. And I just note in the chat box that Councillor O'Neill has declared an interest as an employee of the West End Health and Social Care Trust. And likewise, I have the same declaration of interest as an employee of the same organisation.
Chair,
Councillor Turner, on the same issue.
It's just a declaration of interest. I'm not sure whether I need to do this, but I just want to double check with the city solicitor, as my wife is an employee of the trust, and therefore would obviously have an impact on my household income. So
Yeah.
just to make that point.
That declaration is recorded.
Chair, same declaration of interest. My husband's an employee of the Western Trust.
Okay. Declarations noted. Bear with me, members. Councillor Mooney, did you have a matter arising?
Yes, Chair, thank you. It's HC 210/21. It's the COVID money paper that was brought to HNC there the week before last. I attended a meeting, I think all our waterside councillors were on there, of the Waterside Network Partnership last week, and they were raised concerns about the funding paper and how it actually panned out. An email was sent, and really what they've asked us to do, or asked the councillors who were present, is they raise their concerns in relation to this. I'll try and be brief as possible because I know time's pressing, Chair, but what they're saying is that because of the paper and the output of the paper, DFC allocated 424,503 to council that must be focused on community level COVID interventions and not general community development work. The concerns they have is firstly that they were disappointed that council officers did not consult with the local growth partnerships as to the best use of the funding, given that they were involved in delivering 3 tranches of COVID responses over funding over last autumn and winter. Secondly, Chair, the proposal, in their view, will not provide a fair distribution of the funding, as it is proposed to use the money to fund groups who did not meet the threshold for funding under grant aid. Obviously, Waterside only receiving 1,600 in that aspect, and then the other aspect is that they're only receiving 3,750 from the venues aspect. Their other concern is that they believe that the creation of a new grant aid process for the remaining funding is not an effective process to reach those groups most in need of support, as again it will go to groups who have the capacity to complete funding applications. So essentially what their concern is really was that they weren't fully consulted in relation to this matter. I know that at the meeting, which I heard online, I think the officer concerned may have said that there was an issue of time, but obviously the officer can address that point. The point really is that I think that I spoke to officers, and obviously the officer concerned can relay his own concerns related to that there. But their ask is, or what their view is really, is that council officers should be asked to consult with the local growth partnerships at the best use of this funding, and to find a more fair and equitable way of distributing the funding from DFC before the papers passed by this full council. So I can see all our members on there, and I think they're coming to the same issue, Chair, but I'll give way now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mooney. And like yourself, I've had conversations and I've had correspondence with members of that particular neighbourhood partnership, and that's, I want to declare an interest as a member of the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership. But I see Alderman Guy and Alderman McClintock coming in on the same issue, and Alderman Devaney. So I'm going to bring Alderman Guy in. I'm going to bring the Thieves in first before we move on to ask for questions or answers from the officer. So, Councillor Guy, Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Basically, I just agree with what Councillor Mooney says there, and just like to ask what the correspondence we had with Barry earlier. Have any of the officers managed to meet with the strategy managers yet to inform them of the food monies that is to be distributed in the future, and explaining, giving a full explanation how they arrived at the sports club funding? Be very much appreciated. Thanks, Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Alderman
Declared interest too.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and I won't go for the same points as Councillor Minnie and Alderman Guy made, just to say that again, I've been contacted also on a declaration of interest as a member of the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership. There's something that doesn't seem right when the Waterside is only going to be allocated 1,600, Derg 385 and Falcon 425, when other DEAs are getting as much as £32,794. And I mean, I really don't feel that we can pass this this part of the minutes today. The Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership has proved itself very effective in how it dealt with all the funding that was awarded to it during the COVID crisis when it was at its worst. And I would have no doubt that if they were consulted, they certainly could put something in operation to make sure that they would spend the money within the allocated time. So I really don't feel that we can pass this today. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in, and I agree with the sentiments of the previous speakers. This was an issue I raised at the relevant committee, and I did raise the concerns to lack of consultation, and I wanted to declare an interest in the Sperrin Local Growth Partnership Board. And you know, I was concerned about the lack of consultation with those groups who stepped into the breach to deliver the COVID response earlier on. And I spoke at length on it, and the answer I got back that the funding was time bound, and probably what I took out of that response was that there would be no time for consultation to go out there. But just as the previous speakers, I want to just put on record that I recognise the great work that these local growth partnership boards done, and you know, at the end of the day, they really know where the need is out there, because they're out in those DEAs and know what's going on. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair, and whilst declaring interest as a member of the Ballyarnett Neighbourhood Partnership, I haven't spoken to anybody about this in terms of that collective group, but I did raise at this committee the last time around, and Barry was going to go and check it out for me, around the use of some of this money for salaries, because one of the things that some community groups in Ballyarnett had raised with me is that it's fine having resource, but we're continually, and I suppose it's a good thing, asking people to do more. And Barry was going to speak to the department for me, because I don't think we had the letter of offer at that point. So I'm wondering if we can have an update. But broadly, I have to support what other members have said. I do think we should be asking the partnership boards where exactly we can use this funding for the better of the community, rather than just putting together these funds and expecting people to be able to shape themselves to be able to apply for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, before bringing an officer in, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I really do appreciate what all our members have been saying. I suppose I'll declare an interest as a member of the Ballyarnett Growth Partnership, and I have had a conversation with the manager there in relation to this. Now, there was a definite concern around stepping outside the consultation that has been ongoing throughout COVID with the local growth partnerships in terms of the allocation of the funding, but there was no real issue with the funding that was being allocated. But there was a general annoyance that they felt that they had been cut out of the process, so to speak. In terms of the allocation, I am happy to proceed with the recommendation that is before us. It was well discussed at the Health and Communities Committee. I also know that I have had my own conversations with council officers in relation to it and how it came about. And in terms of sports funding, I do think, and I'll declare an interest as well as the Secretary of St Joseph's Boxing Club, I know that there are a lot of grassroots sports clubs who were cut out of the sports grant aid that would have normally have been available to them. A lot of the sports clubs are struggling to keep their doors open, and I suppose they were appreciative of the fact that there was a tranche of funding that they could access. And in relation as well to the allocation of people who scored above the threshold, but were unable to access money because the money had all been allocated. I know from talking to those applicants, they are equally delighted in terms of the proposal in terms of allocation of funding to them. So at this point, I am happy to proceed with the recommendations. I take on board the concerns by other members, but you know, this money is here. It does need to be allocated and spent, and I think that the proposals that have come from council officers are reasonable and can be applied now. So happy to continue with the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duffy, can I invite Karen McFarland to come in and address some of the questions that members had?
Deputy Mayor, thank you for that. I'm aware, obviously, of the discussion at the Health and Community Committee, and I suppose just to reassure committee that our officers have taken that on board. And as of this week, there should have been the commencement of conversations with our local growth partnerships and other relevant groupings. Not sure if that is completed in its entirety, but I'll follow up after this evening's meeting and give you an update on that. I suppose in terms of the programme, and I think you've covered in your discussions at both committee and this evening a range of the relevant issues. There are pressures on our community development funding that have been raised as previously in committee with a directive that officers go back and look at how we might best address the funding deficit for those groups who had previously made applications and expressed interest in our programmes, but we had insufficient funding available to support those. I think there is the potential that there is some funding there still to be distributed, and I'm sure our officers will work creatively and innovatively with groups to take that forward. So members, I suppose ultimately we put a funding proposal to the department. They've invited us to make a submission. So there may be aspects of that the department do not seek or wish to approve. And I think in terms of the sports grant, that's one of the elements that we're looking guidance on. And equally, just in answer to the question on salaries, we're awaiting feedback on whether that might be deemed an eligible expense or otherwise. So we're committed and staff are committed to working through this process to have further discussions. And hopefully on the basis of that, we can refine the existing level of funding to suit the needs that are identified. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Karen. And just for clarity, we're not entirely sure if all the meetings have been concluded with the relevant strategy managers. And just to pick that up, right?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, I don't have that information available to me, but I mean, I can check and make that information available as soon as possible. But the intention is to meet with each of those groupings.
Okay, thank you. Members, we do have a recommendation coming from the committee. I'm sensing that it's not unanimous. Alderman McClintock.
Deputy Mayor, for letting me in again. I would like to see this deferred until all those conversations have taken place. It's very clear that there is a real element of discontent out there, and I think that until all the conversations have taken place with the local strategy partnership managers, that we should defer the decision on this. And I would so propose that.
Second that, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you. So there's a proposal which is seconded to defer this section. This recommendation coming from the committee. Councillor Doyle, for question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just check? I might have missed it just when I had a phone call there, but in terms of the time-bound nature of this, is that outlined in the letter of offer? Does it say, for example, that applications have to be in by a certain time? I'm just trying to get my head around the implications of the current proposal, because the last thing anybody wants, I'm sure, and You know, we would all want to make sure that the money isn't lost, but at the same time, if there can be further scrutiny within the time frame, I don't think that's a bad thing either.
Karen, have we got any information in respect to the time frame?
Deputy Mayor, just to confirm that we haven't received a letter of offer. Proposals will be scrutinised by the department. I assume that there is an opportunity for us to make variation to those in consultation with the department, and certainly we'll actively pick up that conversation in the morning.
So Karen, I suppose just a wider question in that, to your knowledge, do you know if there's any implications funding wise by taking a deferral?
I'd have to check that, Deputy Mayor, with the department. But you know, I suppose it's one of those difficult decisions where we've been asked to put together a proposal. We've presented that to the department and it's under consideration. So it will be an opportunity now as to whether or not we need to seek further variation on that. There may be elements of what we have proposed that are excluded. So I'm assuming that on that basis, there would be an opportunity for reiteration on other aspects of our bid. And I think the paper did propose that Barry presented at committee in my absence, that were the case, that monies would be reallocated through the local growth partnership process.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Councillor Tierney.
Thanks, Chair, for allowing me on. Can I just check that if we do agree to defer this item, is Alderman McClintock suggesting that it's the entirety of the recommendation, because there's three separate pieces in it from my recollection, and also if we do hold off to have the discussions with the local growth partnerships, and I have already in the chat box declared an interest as a member of the Ballyrnet one. Is there, or what are we aware of what the time constraints will be if we decide to start the process from start? Because it's my understanding that the time frame to have this money spent is by the end of this financial year. And if that's the case, and if the case is that we start the process from scratch, do we have, and do the local growth partnerships have, in the officer's opinion, enough time to go through the process and get the money spent in time for the end of the financial year? Thank you.
Mayor, I suppose it's one of the chicken and egg situations. We don't have a letter of offer, and until we have that, and until we have an approved proposal by the department, we're not in a position to guarantee. So we're awaiting that approval. We don't have any significant timescale to start a full level consultation process. A lot of that work has previously been done, so it would be a question of a quick revisiting of that. I've just been confirmed that we do have an officer who's not been available this week, but there are, I think, proposals in the diary for that process to complete, specifically focusing on the 130k of food monies that the decision on allocation is yet to be made. So I suppose that if that assists, there is still 130k, which is not proposed to be allocated, or sorry, there are no definitive proposals for allocation of at this particular point in time.
Okay, members, we've got a proposal on the floor, the defer. I know there's no time frame contained within that deferral. I don't know if Alderman McClintock, do you want to provide any clarity?
Well, I mean, from what I'm hearing, Deputy Mayor, from Karen, is that it wouldn't take an awful lot of work, as part of this is down to the fact that there has been an officer off, and it wouldn't take a lot of work to update things. So, I mean, I think it would be reasonable to say that the decision has to be made certainly by next month's council meeting.
Okay, so there's a proposal which is seconded, the defer this recommendation. I just want to get a sense from the room. Is there a consensus on that? Is there anybody that wishes to proceed with the recommendation today?
Chair, Mayor, Deputy Mayor,
Councillor Duffy?
Yeah, I am concerned with the recommendation to defer. I have huge concerns around it in terms of getting the money out and getting it to where it needs to go. I do understand the concerns coming from Alderman McClintock. I would though want to caveat it that a report does come to this month's Health and Communities, because I wouldn't want to see it drift on any further than that. That there is time constraints in this in terms of getting money out on the ground, and then of course getting it spent and vouched and all the rest of what needs to happen. So if we could ensure that a report comes to this month's Health and Communities, we will go with the deferral.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So with the way I'm seeing it on the floor is that we've got a proposal to defer and the decision until next month, with the report coming to Health and Communities. Councillor Mooney.
Chair, I'll be brief. My main concern is obviously that we raised this was the idea of time, because I think it was mentioned at the HNC meeting there 2 weeks ago. But obviously, if any paper, any reports been brought back, we need a definitive time frame from officers. I know Karen can provide one there at the moment, but it would be important for everybody just to get that level of detail in relation to the timing, so that if there's any threat to any potential funding or things like that there. So I would want that to be brought forward as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Alderman McCready, apologies.
Mayor. You put yours on. Thanks very much. Can you clarify the implications of the decision on access to the funding? Because as I see it, it opens around the 11th of October for a period of time and closes again on the 22nd of October. If we don't ratify a decision based on this recommendation, the next council meeting will be too late. So council officers that don't have a position to act on, and there's external funders involved here. So do we really have a process or a way to do this by deferring it? Because in the past we have looked at things where we can do delegated authority on a decision pending the outcome of further investigation, so that we still meet the timeline, so that nobody goes without funding on this case. So I just like that clarified on the implications piece, because this shouldn't got to the point now this late in the game to do it, but we are where we are and we need to deal with it. And I don't want to give, I want to give due regard to those that may receive this funding and all the DEAs, and my own in particular. But just a bit of feedback on that, please, before we make a decision on this.
Yeah, no, I accept the point completely, Alderman McCready, around the time constraints. But just to remind all members that if there is a requirement, then there's a mechanism within council. They call a special council meeting. They discuss or take a decision on any particular item. Councillor Tierney, Councillor Tierney, and then I'll ask Karen to come back, or any other council officers.
Chair, thank you for letting me in. I would like clarity, like Alderman McCready, around the time frame, because I'm of the view that we don't have enough time, and I've said that already. Alderman McClintock, whenever she came back, and they were saying, you know, with a report coming back to the Health and Communities this month, and I just want to caution, having these meetings and discussions with the local growth partnerships could, in any eventuality, change the entire direction of where we are at. If it does, by the time it comes back to Health and Communities, we could be seeing a whole new process starting. If that process starts, I don't think that we will have it concluded and the money spent by the end of this financial year. Therefore, we're not living up to the commitments of the original letter of offer. And if that's the case, can we find out what would the implications be for council and for the groups who would receive that funding? Because I think that's a major consideration that we need to be given. Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Mayor, if you want me to respond briefly. We as a council are obliged to give the department an assurance that we will spend the money within the time period of the end of March. We've seen in the previous distribution of COVID monies that it has been quite challenging for groups to be able to meet those spend timelines. We don't anticipate having any flexibility on that end programme date. So to defer the approval to, say, the end of October, I think would be significantly challenging in terms of us having a scheme that we could sign off in terms of delivering. I suppose the second aspect of that is there are a significant number of groups who've already been through funding processes who have an expectation that council are filling that void in terms of redirecting or finding other funding to take on board that deficit, and that is already an approved motion of council. So I think really from an officer perspective, we'd be advising, no, we think it is significantly challenging. It wouldn't be possible, I think, to rewrite the entire process at this particular point in time. I suppose I've tried to highlight, and maybe not as clearly as I should have, that there is the 130,000 of food funding, which there is some flexibility around if we can focus on how that might well be distributed, and hopefully that may allay some of the concerns that have been raised by the specific partnership. I suppose I don't have the cut-off date for the department, but obviously they have their own timescales in terms of their approvals and letters of issue. So I think the time frame is specifically tight.
Okay. Now, I know that Karen, I suppose just to reiterate the point that that the deferral, the proposal that's on the floor would make it extremely challenging for the money to be spent. That's my take on it from the advice from officers. Councillor McCready, or Alderman McCready.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. In light of the information provided by Council Officer, which I'm grateful for, it's certainly our position here in the Ulster Unionist Party is not to accept that risk. We don't think it's worth deferring or delaying at the expense of the entire process which we've got to this point. I take on board the point which Member McClintock has said, but I don't think it's got enough gravity to change the decision at this point. If there is a lessons learned outcome of this process, then we capture that towards the inval and the external validation and enhance the process so this doesn't happen again in the future, but not prepared to accept any further risk on it, and we will not be supporting a deferral in this case. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me back in, Deputy Mayor. From listening to the last number of comments there, and particularly the dates highlighted by Alderman McCready, and then the subsequent comments from Karen, I don't think that we can support a deferral. I want to go with my original thoughts on it in terms of the recommendations. It's just too risky to start this whole process over again. It's significant amounts of money that people are dependent on. So no, we won't be supporting the deferral.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. And as with others, when this item was raised first this evening, there was a view that we should have had the conversations with all of the local area managers. I think that it leaves us in a difficult position today because of what the strategic director is outlining in relation to the time frame here. Nobody across the council area wants to see any of this money being lost to our council area, but I do think there are lessons to be learned in terms of how quickly and how promptly council officers can try and have that conversations with the local area partnerships. And I say that as a member of the Waterside Area Partnership, but I know from our own group that other people would share that view. But I think in the circumstances where we find ourselves tonight, we don't have any other option, unfortunately, but to go with the recommendation that's there before us. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now, I know that we do have, I know that from the previous three speakers, given their indication that they wouldn't be supportive of the proposal that's on the floor, but there is a proposal on the floor that's seconded to defer this recommendation. So, and it doesn't. I'm not getting the sense that it's unanimous. So I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive to take us to a vote.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Bresland.
For.
Alderman Devaney.
For.
Alderman Guy.
Against.
Alderman Hussey.
Against.
Alderman Carrigan.
For.
Alderman McClintock.
For.
Alderman McCready.
Against.
Alderman Ramsey.
For.
Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor John Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Carr.
Against.
Councillor Cusick.
Against.
Councillor Cusick.
Against, John.
Councillor Dobbins.
Against, John.
Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Doyle.
Against, John.
Councillor Duffy.
Against.
Councillor Edwards.
Against.
Councillor Farrell.
Against.
Councillor Ferguson.
Against, John.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor Fleming. Councillor Gallagher.
Against.
Councillor Harkin.
Against.
Councillor Heaney.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor McGinley.
Against.
Councillor McHugh.
Against, John.
Councillor McKinney.
Against, John.
Councillor Mooney.
John.
Say again, Councillor Mooney.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Against.
Councillor Riley.
Against.
Councillor Sinoy Barr.
Against, John.
Councillor Tierney.
Against.
Thank you, members.
John, I just note that Councillor Jason Barr voted, indicated in the chat box that he voted against.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, I've recorded 27 against, 5 for, and no abstentions. So the proposal falls.
Okay, thank you, John. Now it's my understanding that that with that proposal falling, the recommendation will carry. The recommendation from the committee will carry through. We've got Councillor O'Neill, have you a matter raising? It's in C202.
It's just around the policing and just the PSNI have previously been challenged for criminalising women attempting to access abortion provisions, and like there's a failure from the Stormont executive to implement legally agreed abortion services, which violates human rights here and continues to make people feel criminalised. And the denial of the right to choose and the criminalisation of anyone seeking abortion access here and anywhere really should alarm us. Therefore, the recent enactment of an extreme anti-abortion and anti-choice and anti-women's right law in Texas in the United States should alarm everyone concerned with human rights. When hard-fought rights when hard fought for rights are taken away, it just shows us how important these movements are that continue to campaign for human rights locally, but also in solidarity across the world. And women and Right to Choose supporters across Ireland are standing in solidarity with people in the United States this weekend to call for this reactionary law to be repealed. So it's just to urge councillors and to let people know, about joining Alliance for Choice in Waterloo Place at 2 p.m. on Saturday to make our voices heard. And given our council's pro-choice position, I just wanted to just put a proposal under the chat box, on this issue. Well, it's not pasted for me, is it? Sorry. Give me a minute, or not that long. There we go.
Okay, Teresa, can we get that up on the screen, please? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, and I know the normal course of action is that motions such as this be submitted in advance to allow members give it careful consideration, and it's also to be fair to all those all those councillors who have already been pre-submitted their notices of motion. But given the time critical nature of this, I'm allowing it to be discussed and to be debated at this meeting. But again, I'd just like to sort of request or appeal to all members that if there is a motion that that you feel strongly about, the best course of action is for that to be submitted in advance. And there's no reason why it couldn't have been submitted in advance of this meeting. But given that it's time critical, I can't ask for it to be brought back to a further meeting of council. So I'm happy I'm content to allow this motion to be put on the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Do you wish to speak to it, or?
I feel I've spoken.
Yeah, you have. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for letting me in. And look, I'll make our party's stance very clear. We will not be supporting this proposal, or as you say, there's a motion should have came before there's a motion, but we are where we're at. But we will not be supporting the proposal. And I think our party is very, very clear on the issue that we support, the unborn baby, and they have rights as well. And we will not be supporting it, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and can I first say that I'd like a recorded vote on this. Naturally, I won't be supporting it. I think the pro-abortion lobby are blind to the fact that seemingly when they talk about rights, it's only at the expense of others. And not only is that the case more generally, but in the context of this motion, it talks about rights, but at the same time, the same rights in terms of the right to protest has been tried to be curtailed by people before profit at this council, backed by others, to stand up for the unborn. Aintu stands very clearly in support of the unborn, in support of mothers, and we will be supporting this motion. But of course, as I said, Deputy Mayor, I'd like a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, and just to reassure yourself, Councillor Doyle, it's a virtual meeting. If it's and we're not sensing unanimity, then it's going to the vote will be recorded. Councillor Dobbins.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the SDLP have a conscience clause with regard to abortion issues, so therefore we, as a group, will be voting individually. But I do share your sentiment. There was 14 of us councillors who actually took the time to write out and research motions and put them in accordance to a deadline that was put forward. And these pop-ups are getting a bit ridiculous. Now, I do share your sentiment with regard to that. I think it totally unfair, and the rest of us who have actually taken the time. This was well known long before now, and probably before the deadline of motions that had to go in. So I just like my point. I will not be supporting this motion, but I would like my point made that the pop-ups now are becoming a bit ridiculous.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support the motion in front of us. I do agree that it is a really important issue that we debate today and that we have a conversation around. I was highly concerned at the decision taken in Texas and the implications that has for further afield for women's rights and for women's healthcare right around the globe. I am really concerned around the Trump-stacked judicial system at the minute, because I do think that is going to have huge implications for women's healthcare. In terms of the North here, I am really still concerned that the early medical abortion services are not happening here in the Western Trust, and I think that is something that we need to be tackling and looking at as well. In terms of the health minister has an onus on him to commission abortion services for pregnant people here in the North. Feet dragging cannot be tolerated any longer. It is something that needs to be implemented to provide proper healthcare services for everyone in the North at the minute. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And again, us in Alliance, we have a conscience policy on abortion and life and death issues. So we will be voting individually, and I will be in support of this motion. I don't think I've ever hidden from the fact that I am supportive of women having access to healthcare and abortion services. And I think it's absolutely shocking that, like Councillor Duffy has just said, that the Western Trust is still lacking that service. And because of that, many of the women within our city and district are having to travel not to another trust but to England, because they can't access it even from another trust. And I think it is really important that we show our solidarity with the Texas women and pregnant people, because they should have the right to choose, and it should be between them and their doctors. So I'm happy to support the motion, and I will be there on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor O'Neill, for bringing forward the proposal. And look, the DUP have tried to tell people that they're changing, but clearly from what their representatives are saying tonight, there's no change. The DUP are still an anti-choice and anti-women's rights party. And I think that the issue about what's happening in the US is important for here, because of the global influence that America tends to have. So, you know, if Texas is basically criminalizing and banning abortions aren't going to stop in Texas. What it'll mean is women will die in back alley dangerous abortions. And that was one of the biggest reasons in the US for actually legalizing abortion and making it part of medical services for women. And that will have repercussions here, because, you know, up until very, very recently, abortion was criminalised here, and women were, threatened with jail time, and we still haven't got actual that abortion service provision in the north of Ireland, despite everything. So one thing I will say, look, I commend anybody that will vote for this motion tonight, but in this day and age, and after so much campaigning across this island, for political parties not to be able to take a stand, a pro-choice stand, is very, very disappointing. And I think that parties should look at their manifestos and think about the big struggles that have happened across Ireland over the last years, where Ireland has voted pro-choice. So that's disappointing. And look, but I urge people to vote in favour of this tonight, and I hope that, like me and like others, you'll be able to support the protest in Derry on Saturday, or in Belfast if you happen to be there. Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horgan. Apologies, I've just lost the chat box. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in. Like others, I would agree that this is a very, very important issue, and would nearly suggest that it's far too important to be bounced on any of us, regardless of what your stance is on abortion. And having to come to a decision on this on a matter of minutes is something that I'm torn on, to be really, really honest, and people will know I have been torn on issues around abortion as they come before this council in previous notices of motion. And I would have preferred that we had had time to consider the wording in front of us, but I understand and I respect your right as chair to allow it in, and we must deal with it thereafter. As Councillor Dobbins has said, my party have a conscience clause on matters of abortion. So for me, Chair and members, I'm really looking at the last paragraph of the text that's in front of us. I would never encourage anyone to get an abortion. I would do all that I could to talk them out of it, but I equally don't think that I have the right to stop them if they wish to choose to do so. The Health Minister has the authority and should be bringing in abortion services as in line with the Stormont executives. So therefore, based on that, and on that alone, I will be supporting the notice of motion that's before us, reluctantly, because of the reality is that if this was any other matter to do with healthcare, we all would be jumping up and down if the Health Minister was stopping this from being brought in. And I believe that he's stopping it from being brought in because of his own belief. And if that's the case, then that's up to him. But the reality is that he has got the authority to bring it in. It's been passed, it's been voted on. Therefore, he should follow the direction given by the executive and implement it. And for that reason, I will be supporting the motion, Chair. But I'm not comfortable with having this bounced on us and having to make a decision in a matter of minutes. And I would have preferred time to consider the full text that's before us in its entirety. But we are where we are, so I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I want to reflect on your own opening remarks, and did Councillor Dobbins, and what we just heard actually from Councillor Tierney. To have this bounced on us in this nature is reprehensible. I'm looking at this motion. I see three issues actually. Whatever happened in Texas, and I haven't a clue. I haven't had a chance to look and see, what happened in Texas, how this decision came about. There's what happened in Texas. Okay. Next, then there's a protest at the weekend, and it's on that basis that you have permitted the motion to come through. That's a separate issue. And then finally, there's the executive issue at the bottom, which again is deserving of proper research and debate. So I'm concerned, and I'm supposed to ask a question: how recent was that decision in Texas? Now, I'm not aware of it. I'll hold my hands up and say that. But how recent was that? I suspect it may not have been within the last couple of weeks. Therefore, this motion could have been framed and actually come through as a proper motion, as you yourself indicated at the very beginning. So I'm undecided in this at this moment in time, and I'm listening to the debate intently. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman McCready.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to allow me to speak on this. The first thing is the fact that you've accepted this motion and the timing and the fact that there's three aspects to it, all very different. I think it's a very poor reflection on your judgment in this sitting of council, but I do accept your decision as Deputy Mayor. The second point is, to bring something which are very emotive and real-time issues which ought to be discussed, in various forums, then you can certainly do that. But to Member Dobbins and so many others, well, she outlined, and so many others have followed, who've done the research and given that foresight, and do you respect the other members in this chamber to go away and actually look at these things in great detail and do some research? The fact that they members bring up these pop-up motions, which I thought we had dealt with through the updating of standing orders and a fairly good understanding, a mutual understanding of members of how we do business, but clearly not. However, that's certainly the members' prerogative to bring this forward. The fact that that there are three separate aspects to this, I haven't had time to read legislation in Texas and the United States. It's difficult enough to keep up with our current policies and guidance with our own council to deliver for our people who's paying extortionate amount of rates in a city which is, as I've said before in previous comments of mine, where we're always the underdog. Well, the reason why is because we don't focus on actually delivering for our constituents, our ratepayers. We go off and look around the world and we look for issues in the United States, Israel, Palestine, and all over. Let's get our own issues in our own back garden fixed first. Once we get those fixed, Deputy Mayor, then we can look across the street and say, okay, let's fix the streets. We get the street right, we get the town right, and we can actually have a good city in the future. So, and also, I am speaking as an individual and not as or not speaking on behalf of the party, because the Ulster Unionist Party does have this conscience clause as well. So let me be clear and not dodge anything. I value life. I really do, to a point where, it's not just one person that makes a baby. I'm not going to go into much details for members, but generally that there's two people involved, and unfortunately, I've had recent loss of a twin, an unborn child, and certainly it was something that hit us pretty hard, and certainly something I think about every day. And we talk about abortion, and we throw the term abortion around like it's some sort of a contraception. Nothing to do with religion. It's certainly nothing to do with telling people how to live their lives, but certainly two people who made a decision to procreate in such a way, then to maybe consider having the baby. And outlined with other members, there are many mitigation measures that you can put in place before you really need to do an abortion. And there are extenuating circumstances where abortion may be needed, may come into that medical choice between the patient and the doctor. And so I do support that. So I'm not doing this in any religious type base or anything else, other than I really do value the life that we cherish in this world. And I'll do what I can to promote that and indeed help women and their partners when they do have babies and have issues thereabout. So I'm not prepared to stand here and get these pop-up motions and somehow try to be browbeaten into making a for, against, or whatever else, and somebody's randomly ill thought out and ill put together motion for something that they get in the media the following day. Absolutely reprehensible and unacceptable. And I'll be abstaining from this vote, not necessarily because of the content, but how this would be done in general. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alderman McCready. And just again to reiterate, I do have major concerns around the way that this motion has has come about. But I don't believe that it's elected or it's per judgment to allow this meeting or this motion to be debated in front of the committee today. I'm going to admit that it was finely balanced, but my decision to allow this to be discussed is based solely on the time-sensitive nature of the protests at the weekend, and it's something it's in terms of consistency. We have promoted protests in the past, and I believe that there was merit in this, and I still believe that there's merit in the discussion around the protest specifically. Councillor Valencia Bar.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. Yeah, the SDLP has a conscience vote on this, and I will be supporting this motion. While I do agree with my colleagues on a pop-up motion that should not be encouraged, I do strongly believe this is a very important issue that we should discuss, because women have a moral right to decide what they want to do with their bodies, and the right to abortion is vital for gender equality, and it is unacceptable for me and for so many women that the Minister of Health is still dilly-dallying, waiting, when we know that there are so many women out there who are traveling down south or going to England to access healthcare while they can access healthcare here at home. I think the minister is letting so many women down, and that is why I will be supporting this motion. And I don't believe that it is a big of a motion to discuss today. I completely understand on top-up motions, but this is one that we should discuss, and thank you for letting us discuss it.
Thank you, Councillor Cusick.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, again, as I have said before in this chamber, this is not a black and white decision, but as usual, people before profit conflates rights, beliefs, morality, and personal choice, and they put people, especially people in this chamber, in an impossible situation. And I'm quite angry about this. It's insulting to present this highly sensitive issue to us in there now what's become a habitual pop-up manner. And to me, it's a form of bullying in the chamber. And I am personally against abortion. I've made that very clear, and especially abortion on demand. But I agree with people's individual rights, and I would never tell another person, especially another woman, what to do with their body. In my family, there's been some really traumatic situations of late with regards to this issue. So, you know, that's why I'm so angry at this coming before us in this manner as well too. There are elements which I agree with and disagree with in this motion, and on that basis, and with respect which people before profit seems to have very little of recently, tonight I will be abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cusick. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and others have pointed out the difficulties that is presented by popping up a motion on such a sensitive matter. So I'll not rehearse all of those arguments, but just to say that I agree with them. In relation to the motion that's in front of us, for me, the particular line that's relevant is the final paragraph in relation to what's happening here in our area. I understand and can concur to a degree about the importance about what's happening in Texas and taking a stand on all of that, but I wouldn't claim in any way to be an expert as to what's happening in Texas. But I do think that we as a council need to look at what's happening in our own council area. When this issue came up before, back in the time when we were able to meet in the physical chamber, I spoke about how we can't have a situation where a young lady may find themselves in Derry facing different legislation and different opportunities than compared to people who live in Donegal. Now we find ourselves in a situation where a young girl, a young woman living in Derry find themselves in a different position than if they were living in Dungiven. And I think that that's wrong. I think that right across the island, people should have the same access to healthcare, and I think that the lack of that is proving very difficult for people. So I understand the points that have been made about having to deal with this issue now because of a protest that's taking place at the weekend. But I also think that there's a reason to deal with it now because of the fact that we have people in our Western Trust area right now facing choices and facing difficult decisions about how they access healthcare for them in their own individual choices that they want to make. And as others have said, we all can have our own position on these matters, but it's not for us to tell other people what to do when they are making decisions on such a very personal matter to them. So for those reasons, Deputy Mayor, and in line with the final paragraph about the need to treat this issue sensitively, but also deal with the fact that the Stormont Executive should have regulations in place, something that has been mandated for in terms of the 26 counties, in terms of a vote that took place there, and the express will of the Irish people to have the constitution changed in the Republic of Ireland. I think that in Northern Ireland, no matter if you live in our council area or in an adjacent council area, all women should be treated equally. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor McKinney.
Thank you, Chair. I've been sitting here for quite a while listening to people talking. I'm just thinking how many councillors out there have actually had to go through the emotional trauma of an abortion on medical grounds. And Councillor Doyle possibly has never had to do that, never had to make decisions. And perhaps he should maybe consider when people do have to make those decisions. So it's quite a emotive subject for me. But what I will say, I agree that women have the rights to decide what they wish to do with their bodies. But due to the nature in which this motion has been presented, I will be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKinney. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I believe in a woman's right to choose whether they live in Texas, Tully Alley, or Tamnairn. I agree with the comments that have been made previously. I think this has been an ambush by people before profit. They should have followed council procedures. They should have submitted this as a notice of motion. They should have acted with courtesy and manners. But like others, the final line in the motion is the most important for me. Women in the north should have access to abortion service if they need it and if they want it. Therefore, I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. And there's no further indicated speakers. I'm going to pass over to the Chief Executive for a vote.
Mayor. Alderman Breslin.
Against.
Alderman Devaney.
Against.
Alderman Guy.
Abstain. Sure.
Alderman Hussey. Alderman Carrigan.
Against.
Alderman McClintock.
Against.
Alderman McCready.
Abstain, John.
Alderman Ramsey.
Against.
Councillor Jason Barr.
Against.
Councillor John Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
For John.
Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr.
Against, John.
Councillor Cusick.
Abstain, John.
Councillor Dobbins.
Against, John.
Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Doyle.
Against.
Councillor Duffy.
For.
Councillor Edwards.
Against, John.
Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Ferguson,
For John.
Councillor Fleming, Councillor Fleming,
To the chat box, John.
all right, thank you. Councillor Gallagher,
For.
Councillor Harkin,
For.
Councillor Heaney,
For.
Councillor Jackson,
For, John.
Councillor Kelly,
For John.
Councillor McGinley,
For John.
Councillor McHugh,
For John.
Councillor McKinney,
John, abstain.
Councillor Mooney,
Against?
Councillor O'Neill,
For.
Councillor Riley,
For.
Councillor Senoy Barr,
For John.
Councillor Tierney,
Reluctantly for.
thank you. Just checking the chat box, members, before I do the count. Councillor Connor,
Fleming here, that was 4.
I've got that. Councillor Fleming, thank you. And I've got yours as well, Councillor Carr. Thank you. Okay. Deputy Mayor, I've recorded 16 for, 12 against, and 5 abstentions. So the proposal passes.
Okay, thank you, John. Members, I'm going to move on. I've got no further indicated speakers for matters arising for the health and community minutes. So I'm moving on now to 8G, which is the monthly assurance audit and risk committee held on the 20th of September, pages 187 to 208 for accuracy.
Councillor McKinley.
Proposal.
Sorry, too far ahead, sorry. Chair.
Is there a seconder for accuracy?
Second, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fleming.
Okay. Is there any matters arising coming out of the assurance audit and risk committee? No matters arising. Moving on now to the special planning committee. It's item 8H. The special planning committee held the LDP meeting held on Tuesday the 21st of September. Pages 209 to 210 for accuracy.
John Boyle, Chair.
The seconder.
Chair. McKinney.
Councillor McKinney, thank you. Any matters arising? No. Members, you'll note in those minutes do not reflect a lot of the discussion that took place and in the open business, and I just note that a lot of the discussion has been monitored in the adoption of the confidential minutes under 10E. Members, once we get through the rest of the committee minutes before we go into confidential, I'm going to take those minutes as well, because there was a decision taken at committee for those items to be heard in open business. But moving on now to item 8I, which is the reconvened planning committee held on Thursday the 23rd of September.
Accuracy, Deputy Mayor.
Accuracy, yeah.
I'm noted as being remotely in attendance. I actually sent an apology for that meeting. I wasn't there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure that will be amended accordingly. Is there any other matters of accuracy?
Chair, can I come in on accuracy?
Yeah, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's in relation to planning note 180 on page 6. Well, it's the bottom of page 5, page 6. You'll note in the text that the recommendation that I made was that the committee would write to the Minister requesting she consider withdrawing the planning advice note. But when you move down to the minute recording the decision, that it states that the recommendation is to write to the Minister objecting to the planning advice note. The proposal was that we would write to the Minister requesting she consider withdrawing the planning note. I know it's a fairly sort of pedantic point, but it is a different proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, and it is my recollection of the meeting as well. So I trust that recommendation will be amended.
Just to say, John Boyle here, Chair, just to say that's my recollection too, as it was withdraw as opposed to object, albeit I didn't vote for it, but just to confirm what you and Councillor Kelly are saying.
Councillor O'Neill, is it accuracy?
No, matters arising, Chair.
Okay. Is there any other matters of accuracy coming from the reconvened planning meeting? No.
Just could I come in there just
On accuracy?
on accuracy?
Yeah, go on ahead.
Let me second. Just regarding the issue around hold on a second, just around the power lines and writing to the Minister. There was actually a proposal there that it would come that we would.
But I'll tell you what.
Sorry, Councillor Gallagher, could we just remind everybody to keep the mics on mute? Councillor Gallagher, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just there was actually a proposal in there that was brought forward, and I brought forward myself, that we as a council would write back on this to the Department of Infrastructure, and that we would use a lot of the information that we have to hand already, and outlining our opposition to this, and also around the slammy slicing of planning applications that are related to major applications.
Okay, that action will be noted.
Thank you.
Have we got a proposer for accuracy?
Propose, Director.
Yeah, seconded, Councillor McKinley.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Neill, matters arising.
Yeah, it's a P183 stroke 21, and it's just a few questions with regards to the judicial review. And it's just kind of coming from a bit of learning from the case in Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council. Whenever a judicial review was eventually quashed in July there 2021, but the Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council had initially resisted the standing of the applicant for judicial review, who is actually the same applicant for the two cases before council. And it's just that when that was unsuccessful, whenever the standing was resisted, that council asked the court to require the judicial review applicant to lodge £10,000 of money as a surety towards the cost of the council should the applicant be unsuccessful in the judicial review. But that might have been because they might have banked on that person not having the money, but they did then. They were able to bring the money forward. And then when that money was lodged with the court, the Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council conceded the case and agreed that the permission was unlawful and should be quashed. But this whole kind of process kind of going backwards and forwards, and prolonging this matter, left the council with a bill for £62,500 that has to be met by its public purse. And so, like, just in terms of like how we're dealing with these judicial reviews, I just have a few questions around those cases in terms of like what assurances can officers give members that by resisting the applicant's standing, will it be a burden on the public purse unnecessarily? Also, if the applicant is making a legal challenge against the unlawful application of planning policy for rural housing sites because of its concerns for the environment, how does that resistance to standing fit with our council's climate emergency declaration and commitment to the rights of nature? And just in terms of DFI, their chief planner had a recent planning advice note which raised concerns about how councils are interpreting rural housing policy, and which re-emphasises how strategic planning policy guidance should be properly interpreted, not an endorsement of the judicial review applicant's challenges and a right to standing in itself. Yeah, and then just finally, the council has a duty of candour to the court. So, so the council has to assist the court to ensure the law is upheld. So, would council agree that it should not be seeking to ensure that judicial review is not heard if it considers the decision being challenged as unlawful? So, just those questions, because I think we do need to learn from that case in Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council when it comes to these judicial reviews. If it is helpful, though, I could maybe email those to or one of our planning officers.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, and I'm just mindful that we do have the city solicitor here, but it would be perhaps unfair to expect the city solicitor or ask the city solicitor to answer those questions in open business. So if you want, you've got the opportunity to ask those questions or to send those questions in an email form. But I'm content to allow you to re-ask those questions, resubmit those questions once we enter into confidential business further on in this meeting.
Great, thank you, Chair.
Members, just to take a step backwards, for accuracy of the reconvened planning meeting, I'm going to ask for a proposer and seconder again. Alderman Hussey has proposed, but I don't believe that Councillor McKinney was in attendance at the meeting. So
I'll second it then.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Boy. Is there any further matters arising? No. So, members, I'm going to move on, and as I've indicated earlier, I'm going to take item 10E out of confidential and have it discussed now. So, item 10E is a special planning committee LDP held on Tuesday the 21st of September, pages 241 to 260, in it for accuracy.
As you'll recall, Deputy Mayor, it was a long meeting and a long conversation, but I'm content to vouch for the accuracy, such as it is a very long conversation. Thanks.
Yeah. Is there anybody prepared to second that?
I'll second the Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Any matters arising from pages 241 to 260? No. Members, if there's no matters arising, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to follow the pattern that was set by the current mayor, and going to move straight on the confidential minutes for the confidential papers that are in front of us before we move to the notices of motion. Alderman Hussey, you have a procedural question?
Yeah, and it's one that Philip may need to clarify. Chairs of committees have been telling us that there's no need for proposing and seconding of recommendations, etc. And yet we do have proposals within committees, minutes and meetings. The advice, I think, from chairs of committees was that the recommendations that should be proposed at this meeting when we're adopting the minutes. At what stage do we actually propose and second then, whether it be recommendations or whether it be actual proposals that have popped up, to use that expression, within committee? What's the procedure? At what point do we as a council have a proposal seconded and voted on or agreed unanimously that it becomes actual council policy as such?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to invite Philip.
Yeah, Chair, I appreciate there is some guidance that went out to members and to the chairs of committees recently, which has perhaps caused a certain amount of confusion. So we're currently reissuing that and updating it and reissuing it on the specific point as to when a decision becomes a decision of council. That's after it has been ratified by the council. Unless it's a matter which is specifically delegated to an individual committee, such as a planning decision. But we will be reissuing updated guidance to the chairs of committees in and around the proposing and seconding and so on.
Deputy Mayor, I thank Philip for that. Could members be made aware of that advice as well, please? Thank you.
Of course, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Philip, and thanks, Alderman Hussey, for that. Members, I'm going to propose, before we head on the confidential, we take a 20-minute break at this point, and then we'll reconvene the meeting. It's now 10 to 8. We'll reconvene at 8:10, and we'll continue the business. We'll pick up at the confidential papers. So going to call for a 20-minute deferral at this stage.